If only.
Jump into it. Thanks, Saul, for being here. Hopefully, you've enjoyed our conversation so far. Thank you, Admiral Gibbs, for the 17-month resub earlier. For bits as well. Follow the channel. In case you haven't already, if you're out there, you haven't followed the channel, we'd love to have you. Give bits or give subs. And we'd appreciate anyone who helps out. And if you're super chats on YouTube, will be read. Thank you, Waterkai, for being the first person to support and gift a sub. Much appreciated, guys. We do need your help. You get access to our
One more hype train.
emotes and ad free viewing. Consider helping us out. Okay.
One more sub and you get a hype train.
We
Guys, make
need
it happen.
we need two more.
Oh,
Yours was a long time ago.
oh, never mind.
It's like,
I was trying. I was
I
trying.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it, friend. I do. I would. I mean, I would love a hype train. That'd be great. But yeah, consider supporting the channel. If you have a app, Amazon Prime Gaming, use that one free sub here. It'd be much appreciated. If you find yourself coming back to this channel often, consider helping us out. All right. Any which way. Uh, so the topic. Um, Earlier today, it seems Elon Musk, in his capacity as head of Doge, has taken aim at USAID, which stands for the United States Agency for International Development. Musk has decided that the agency should be shut down and claims that Trump agrees with him. However, it is generally thought that a president cannot simply decide to shut down an agency on their own. Congress controls the budget, and the president doesn't have the power to zero out funds for a department. But Trump and his allies seem to have a different ideas and are gearing up for a fight. Do you think that Trump should get rid of USAID? Should a president be able to unilaterally end departments/agencies? Are you okay with the president encroaching into the powers of Congress? Or do you foresee this radical expansion of presidential authority to be a problem in the future? So this is a fast-moving story. So I sent this out in the morning. There may have been updates since then that I might have seen. But the gist of it is that this apparently has been going on for quite a bit. I hadn't heard about this particular point of friction, but that USAID was in the crosshairs of someone the right um, for various reasons, and that there's been friction with like the head of USAID, and now that Musk can apparently do something about it. He is moving to end this. But again, we'll get into the very details. It's just that I'm not exactly sure how far along we are in this process. Um, but yeah, the larger point is, can you do that like at all, right? Like, does this have to be an act of Congress? Um, and like, even if you think that the president can, right? Should the president do that? Not just for USAID, specifically this agency, right? We can talk about the agency itself and like what it means and maybe why it's in the crosshairs, but also, would you want presidents to do that, right? Because the consequences of that can reverberate far into the future if presidents can just decide. I don't like this agency. This agency just it disappears. So we'll discuss it all. You can do your opening statement and your intros at the same time. We'll go to our friend Lactoid.
Yeah, so I'm Lactoid. You can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. I want to take this time to, I guess, introduce that we are now in Black History Month. In honor of Black History Month, I would suggest giving bits to the two Black members of the panel, me and Prime, of course. I'm looking forward to talking about this subject here, which is whether or not, probably, whether or not we should give a bunch of money to other people, basically. It's a little more complicated than that, but we'll start with that. No, I think it's a good thing when we don't do that. So I like the idea of not spending money on USAID. And I like the idea of Elon Musk going into agencies, auditing them, and finding out, hey, this is a bunch of hooey. We're getting rid of a lot of it. That's awesome. We should be doing that with every government agency. I'd like to see administrative bloat removed. Overall, government spending has increased dramatically over time as a percentage of the GDP, not just in absolute terms, but also just as a percentage of overall economic output. And I think it's a good thing to cut some of that down. And yes, that should also include foreign aid. Now, there's that hat, the libertarian sort of hat, but then there's also this other hat that I wear, which is the separation of powers that I think is an important thing to take into consideration. He's in for a court fight on this one that he very well may lose. The Constitution does give Congress the power of the purse, and there's been a piece of legislation passed which specifies, hey, you can't just decide to not spend the aid that Congress says you have to spend. There are some people in Trump's corner who say actually that is unconstitutional. One of the problems he's running into is there's been Supreme Court decisions prior to the passage of that statute that indicate actually no, under the power of the purse, Congress has the right to decide that all the money is spent, and that the statute simply codifies that additionally. So he's got a bit of an uphill battle, I think. I think it's very possible the Supreme Court could rule against him. Let's see. I mean, I can see the constitutional argument either way. I think that Congress does have the power of the purse in terms of authorizing payment, but also as the executive, the executive can choose which laws to enforce in large part. And so the executive also, it would then follow that they can choose which laws to enforce, and they also should be able to choose what spending to spend, essentially. So, and then the last question here, do I think the president should be able just to, just remove departments and agencies? I'm a lot less skeptical when presidents try to remove the power that they have as opposed to try to expand it. I think the first is usually pretty good. The second one can be good, but obviously it should be given a lot more scrutiny. So in terms of, removing executive power here, removing agencies that the president has power over, I think that's probably a good thing. Now, if the Constitution allows it, then that'd be a good thing. I would like to see the president be able to prevent spending, but that'll be up to the Supreme Court.
Just quick question. Like, you don't think that if it's commonly believed that, at least it's believed among some circles, that the president doesn't have the power to take away an agency. You don't believe that in itself would be an expansion if they do start doing that?
Well, the actual act of removing departments that they have power over, like you could say the act itself is like an exercise of power. Yeah. But the consequence of that is a removal of some additional power that they have. And yes, the executive power is expanded over the years as these departments added.
It's not consolidation.
Well, wait, you took my question away from him, so I was going to ask that anyways, because how does that remove any powers that he has? It just removes powers against him. If he doesn't like an agency, the agency would be assumed to be working against him, or could work against him, and if he removes it now.
Well, no. If they remove,
we'll get into it in the open.
But yeah, I was about to say, Scott.
We'll get into the open, but I guess a preliminary response to that would be like, the funding is going towards something that the president has control over. The president gets rid of that funding, then that's some kind of power or service that no longer exists. So the president obviously can't have power over if it no longer exists. It would be like there's a Congress says, here's $100 million. you have to spend it on guns for your secret police force. And Trump says, well, actually, you say that I have to have a secret police force that I have to use to oppress everybody, but I'm just getting rid of that. Is this an exercise in power by saying, fuck you, I'm getting rid of the secret police force? It is, right?
No.
But the consequence here would be no more secret police force.
We have a
Okay.
relevant decision from
Scott.
last year, but I'll get into it when it's my turn.
Okay. Let's go to our friend
Yeah.
Scott.
Yeah, so there's a couple things here. First, I'll start with the boring stuff, which is the president absolutely has the authority to get rid of U.S. aid. I don't think that's even really questionable, because the president has two authorities here. One, he can get rid of cabinet positions, and he can also get rid of any agency that is under another agency. So even though Congress writes the purse strings and enacts into law the existence of agencies, he can absolutely take the funds that were given to U.S. aid and then divert them into the United States State Department, because the U.S. aid is under the purview of the State Department. Now, getting rid of those funds completely is something that is definitely debatable. All of the money that went into U.S. aid, we can debate whether or not he can get rid of those things, right? Richard Nixon got rid of the Office of Economic Opportunity. Jimmy Carter got rid of the U.S. Civil Service Commission, and then Reagan was given like temporary powers for like restructuring. Again, you're capable of moving funds. You're capable of moving funds within the same department, even though a lesser agency may be where those funds were enacted. I don't think in any way, shape, or form we're going to see a Supreme Court case that is going to go against what previous presidents have done, which is get rid of agencies and then have the money and the funds subsumed into that agency, which in this example would be the U.S. State Department. That being said, USAID is one of the most evil and horrific agencies that have ever existed within United States history. It is without a doubt a complete myth and lie that has been sold to the world in America as this means of getting food and getting development in other nations. And we as taxpayers pay absurd amounts of money for this institution that was set up in 1964 by the CIA and has always worked closely with the CIA for CIA missions. It is a CIA front to control other nations, to control democracies, to create riots, to create and foment chaos for the American interest. Just a couple of things about USAID that I think are interesting. So we just had this recent freeze, and one of the things that people noticed was $50 billion.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, finally got the show going here. We've finally
and
got
people
it
are like, what the
moving
fuck is
along
this?
nicely.
And many Republicans are like, this is an example of...
Sorry,
of
I
like
was running
fraud,
late
of like
tonight. I had
waste
a
and
business meeting.
Well,
and
no,
I had some
that's
other
not
stuff
what's
going
fucking
on.
happening.
If you
Because
guys
that's enough
could go spam
condoms
the
for
link
somewhere
out in
between
the
20 to
Discord.
50
Make sure that
condoms
everyone
for
knows
every
that we're
single
live
solitary
and we're
man,
ready to
woman, and
go.
child
We're
in
fighting
Palestine.
the
It
good
is
fight.
what USAID has been used
Crushing
for
leftist
over and over and over again,
worldviews
which is
as best
CIA
we
money
can. So
laundering
go,
schemes
spam
to
the
go
show.
towards
Do me proud, guys.
corporations, to go
Unfortunately,
towards
I'm got to
contractors
concentrate
and
on this,
NGOs
so
to foment
I can't
chaos,
do it,
create
and we'll
war,
go from there.
and make the
Thank you.
rich richer at the expense of humanity and the world. In 2021, Mark Milley wrote a really interesting memo. 2021, The Way Forward by U.S. Special Forces Command Airborne. And in it, they created a hypothetical scenario about what they might do in West Africa. In this hypothetical scenario, what they discuss and how we ought utilize U.S. aid and things of that nature is they discuss a soldier finding a billboard with Chinese characters, then said, operative, and then said operative would look into the details and find out that there was a real estate business that China was doing in a hypothetical West African country, but that real estate deal would also be a part of China's Belt and Road Initiative and would also give them ports that would allow them to have more control over the Atlantic Ocean from the West African deal here. What he suggested in this hypothetical, or what they did in this hypothetical, was that the first thing they did is they coordinated with the government and tried to get the government to stop the initiative. Once that didn't work, the next thing they did is they utilized their power to attempt social media campaigns and things of that nature to discredit the Chinese in that deal. After that, the next step was, quote, DOS, which is Department of State, USAID, and NGOs establish job fairs near protest areas to provide disaffected workers with alternative employment options. Within 2 weeks, the construction company lost 60% of its required labor pool. After that, what they did is they used USAID funded organizations and social media organizations to foment chaos so that they could create racial tension between the African locals and the Chinese in the hopes of starting race riots, so that they could then shut down this deal for U.S. power. What he is talking about is a great way to use USAID is to censor, create race riots, and destroy West African countries in a hope that it will stop Chinese Belt and Road Initiative programs. And then what USAID would then say is, oh, look, we did a job fair program. And that job fair program would actually be a means of depleting labor from the Chinese so that we could create race riots and destabilize countries. USAID over and over and over again in the Ukraine, in Brazil, in other South American countries, throughout the Middle East, has been a tool of the CIA to destabilize countries and to put countries into debt and to make them client states of the U.S. empire. It is absolutely a horrible program that needs to be destroyed. And if Trump is able to destroy it and destroy the State Department's replacement and CIA initiatives in this, he will go down as the greatest president in all of U.S. history for stopping the American empire from doing horrendous things to destroy and destabilize the world for its own interests.
Thank you. Corey.
Well, I'll try to keep it brief, but yeah, you can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell 84, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram. It's Corey Campbell. And yeah, so I guess I'll defer largely to Lactoi's expertise and other legal experts in terms of whether Trump has the power to do this, at least from my cursory reading, okay, which could be totally wrong. But like the president cannot unilaterally shut down an entire agency without congressional approval. At least, again, that's my understanding, but could be totally wrong. But what I would say is, am I in favor of foreign aid? Largely, yes. But I haven't dug into the full history or deep dive into the entire history of U.S. AID. I'm in favor of, actual good foreign aid. We'll define what that is. But yeah, I'm not in favor of, let's say, what Scott outlined. If in fact that's true, I don't actually know. I'll have to do the fact checking.
It is.
Okay, sure. Then I'm against that. That doesn't seem good. And there are probably better ways to carry out foreign aid. And like, yeah, I'll probably just like largely, in my mind, this seems like an expansion of power or presidential authority. But I can see Lactoid's position as well, both ways. But I think it tracks with overall Trump's, let's say, mindset. And I think he overall, from what I can tell, has the mindset of he wants to do what it is that he wants to do, and he'll find any sort of legal loophole or any sort of exploitation or loophole that he can do to get it. And I'll leave it there for now.
Ollie?
Yeah, so the quick answers is kind of no, and yes. So like the way foreign aid works, yeah, I don't think it's good having it cut. And maybe there's something to it. I don't know. But really so like Lactoid, this is gonna be bounced back to you. You can think about it for later. You're saying it's like a removal of power, right? Like they take away the thing. Honestly, my biggest worry is not that. I think it's going to be a battle in court that if he can just get rid of an agency. But like, honestly, to me, and just as like some dude who's watching doesn't really know too much politics, I forgot that JD Vance was the vice president. It feels like Elon is the vice president, or like at least a pseudo vice president, right? And I mean, technically, he was, he's not a U.S. natural born citizen. So if he's getting all this like access to the government and to like whatever, I think that's weird. I think giving him all this power is very, very, very strange. Like this is a lot of power. Like I said, from like just some dude watching who doesn't understand politics too much, I forgot that JD Vance was the vice president. So like really, that's my issue with all of this that's going on. And yeah.
We'll go to our friend Gibbs. Gibbs, just before you go though, our friend Sean, or my friend Sean, gave 10 Canadian dollars for a super chat. Says, I am excited to hear from Gibbs why the tariffs threats on Canada are a great thing for Texas. He gave this a bit ago, but
Last week.
last
Oil.
week, yeah.
One word answer: oil.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
so
actually
good.
not a one-word answer. I'm so glad he asked that. I actually was going to talk about this in my opening. But one, oil, sure, that's the obvious one. I'm sure iCal is going to talk about that. And how that's not oil is a good thing because we make light crude and they make heavy crude or all that good jazz. But let me talk about what it is, a direct win. I'll tell you who's winning. Me, Texas ranchers. Finally, lordy, Trump is stepping up for ranchers in the United States. Canadian beef prices, guess what? Those are going to go higher. You know what? Beef prices overall might go higher, but you know who benefits? The ranchers here in Texas and a lot the rest of the United States, because now that is one less country we have to compete to sell our beef with here nationwide and worldwide. It's really good overall. That's going to be the answer to his specific question. Does that answer that, Prime? Now I'll go into my intro here. Man, it's a great day to live in Trump's America. I gotta say, it's all winning. Colombia capitulated, Panama capitulated, Canada capitulated, Mexico capitulated. People could talk about them not being wins, but they're absolutely wins. Small wins add up, big wins add up. All these are massive wins. I'm a huge fan. As for USA, more like US, nope. I don't like this bullshit. I've been saying for a long time, as have been many other conservatives, we have been getting ripped off. I agree with what I think iCal is probably going to say about the Belt and Road. China is going to be able to gain some ground there. But, whenever y'all have been just getting aid worldwide from the U.S. government for so long, where we're just giving y'all no strings attached aid, or we're giving y'all aid with strings attached that we don't follow anyway, you know what? That's bullshit. I also know, and I'm sure this is going to come up, USAID overall given out is only 1% of funding. But whenever we have things like what Lakeford brought up, where we're going to spend $200K on grants to study butchers' languages in France, Paris, France specifically, to study a language that they think is going to die, I don't give two fucks about the British butcher's language. Why did we spend $200K on that? You know what? Why don't you give me the $200K and I'll come up with a way to make that money back and profit for Americans? That seems like a better idea. Jesus Christ, these are terrible things. $50 million for condoms? Yeah, I know it wasn't exactly just for condoms. That was a whole thing. But why? Why are we sending this money to these people? These people hate us. Maybe if we had, you list these requirements and then we will give you the aid, that would work for me. Instead, we these countries hate us. We're going to give them the aid anyway. And it's ridiculous. I'm sorry that I don't feel bad about cutting aid to these countries that all hate us. We've been giving everybody the carrot, and it's been getting us fucked over. Now it's time for the stick, and lo and behold, people are bitching. So yeah, I absolutely hope that Doge cuts the funding and guts USA. Hey, but Elon, I'll tell you what would make all people on the left and the right happier is if instead of focusing on USA first, why don't you get rid of the ATF next? That would be a good one. Why don't we get that done next? And that's the end of that. All I have to say.
I don't know why the left would love that, but okay, fair enough.
You like the ATF? The left likes the ATF?
Yeah, because it bothers you so much. Really,
Oh, well, in that case,
the left
fair
has
enough.
issues.
That's
I
fine.
think a lot of people on the left.
Bro,
really have
the
no
left
opinion on
hates
ATF.
dogs clearly, so they
I
would
think-
love to
I
fund the
think
dog
most
killers.
people on the left have no opinion on the ATF, like zero whatsoever,
Doge.
right? Other than just know that the people on the right can't stand it. But go ahead, I go.
So I kind of want to jump on the earlier discussion about separation of powers that Lectwade sort of brought up, because there's a very although I do agree that there's going to be some court fights here, I'm not sure what happens though, because even if Trump loses those court fights, it just goes back to Trump, and then he gets to try to figure out another way to do it, right? So this is what happened, if you'll remember the Muslim ban in 2017. SCOTUS kept striking it down over and over again. I think it was on the 5th attempt where Trump finally was able to sort of get it through. I think we might see iterative approaches like that, and he's just sort of testing his limits. But to me, the biggest thing that he's going to have to get through is the Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo case, which was last year, which most people probably just think of as the Chevron decision, right? Which basically said that the president no longer has the ability to interpret these statutes without deferring to agency Like the court no longer has to defer to the executive's interpretation on this. In fact, it's the executive who has to prove that he's following congressional intent. So if Congress says you have to fund, these countries in this particular way, it then goes to the courts and they have to determine whether or not Trump shutting down USAID was Congress's intent when they authorized USAID spending initially. And I think it's going to be a challenge, to say the least, to be able to prove that defunding something meets Congress's intent to fund something. It's almost as if you're trying to say that the opposite is happening. I do take what Scott said to heart, though. The instances that he's talking about, especially in terms of West Africa and the ways in which it's trying to fight Belt and Road by starting these race riots and stuff like that, that shit did happen. And I think it's certainly legitimate to say that those kinds of practices could easily be challenged because, I don't think it was Congress's intent for USA to be abused in those particular kinds of ways. And if Trump can argue that that's what he's doing, then maybe he can push a lot of reforms into how that money is spent. I just don't know that he can make it all go away and still be able to show that he's carrying out Congress's will. I mean, we'll have to see. There's something else that's interesting here. Marco Rubio said, I think today or yesterday, that the State Department is now administering USAID. That is to say, they're going to dismantle the agency, but the State Department will take over its functions and will still hand out all of these funds and stuff, which presumably means that on a case-by-case basis, Rubio and other elements of the State Department are going to decide what stays and what goes, which is not what Elon wants to do. Elon wants to get rid of all of it. So it sounds like we're setting up a battle now here between Rubio and Elon, and I guess I don't know if that's if one side's going to fully win on that battle, or if because it goes to case by case, they meet somewhere in the middle. I just don't know where that's going to go. But then going forward, I have to ask, and Gibbs is right that I was going to bring this up. What do we do now to compete with Belt and Road for all of these resources and for all this sort of financial cooperation and even trade deals with a lot of these countries? Especially now with all of the arguments that Trump is making about Greenland. He specifically says we need Greenland for national security purposes. And it's because of these very same resources that we were getting with the aid of USAID. What tools does Trump want to use instead of that? And how does he compete with Belt and Road? Those are some big unknowns.
Thank you. And finally, Grid Sports.
Hey, thanks, guys. Sorry I was running a little late tonight. It happens. I really can't. I don't know that I can add a ton to what Scott said. Scott laid it down perfectly. There's really, honestly, not a whole lot to add there. The only thing I can say is that I honestly believe Trump, I think this is a tactical decision by Trump, because if you actually defend U.S. aid and you defend the hypocrisy and the horrible things that this agency has done in the name of process, it's political suicide. And I think it's very tactical. I don't think that you could stand up and make the case on a podium to an audience of normal people that USAID needs to exist and that Trump's not doing the right thing. As a matter of fact, I think it's a great case for him to say, you see, when they passed the law, when Congress put in place the law that says that the Congress has to approve the president restructuring in 1998, that was a mistake. That was a mistake, and we need to undo that mistake, because if I think it's very tactical. I could be wrong. Maybe he's not thinking that far ahead, but it's a very specific and odd target to pick. Very specific, with a documented history of absolute horrendous things. And I honestly can't think of a single thing that USA can be thanked for. And I couldn't find any either when I went to document it. I mean, not that actually other people didn't do. So with that, I honestly don't have much more to say. Scott covered it all. It's awesome.
Don't worry. I can add a lot to what I said.
I know that Scott can. we all know that Scott can add more.
USAID.
Always.
But
If I just want to piggyback off of you a little bit, Grid, you know, I don't know if this is 5D chess or whatever. I usually assume that Trump isn't engaged in 5D chess if I can help it. But I will say this. If we assume legally that the route that is forced in order for him to get rid of this funding or to get rid of USAID is that Congress is forced to say, I mean, like, because there is another way to go about this, right? Which is in the courts, Trump's lawyers and team could say, well, okay, Congress authorized this money for infrastructure. Congress authorized this money for these things. Here's the ways in which the CIA uses it. And then they're kind of put in between a rock and a hard place, which is they either have to try and, defeat Trump and say, well, yes, actually, we intended for the CIA to stage coups in these countries and utilize, InQtel money and the National Endowment for Democracy and the State Department and USAID to fund NGOs so that we could create a global censorship campaign to ensure that right-wing presidents across Europe and South America aren't elected because we do not actually believe in democracy. We believe in a civil society and democratic institutions. Or they go, oh, we didn't mean for that money to go that way. And then Trump goes, oh, well, since it's being used fraudulently and this isn't what you approved it for, then let's get rid of it. Right. So, I mean, like, there is kind of a, I mean, that is one play here. Or, like, what do people think about that?
Well, I think that's very possible. I think that, I think it's a kind of along the same lines that he used to get Space Force through, right? Like, he kind of just did it and kind of asked permission as he went. When it was denied, he just kind of kept doing it anyway until they finally said, okay, we'll have Space Force. And so
yeah, it was like the Air Force was already doing that anyways, right? So it was just diverting of funds and
it was a diverting of funds, and he just called it out for what it is. And I think that's pretty.
It's not much different than the Air Force being created, right? Like, the Army was handling the Air Force until eventually the Air Force became its own branch.
It spawned a great TV show as well.
Look, I'm a fan of removing this aid,
I'm just kidding.
but like, let's be. Are we really super confident that he can just, like, abolish an agency essentially, or even move the money down to zero? Sure, the president has substantial.
I think the latter is way harder.
I think abolishing an agency. So I think moving abolishing a department or agency is almost
State
impossible.
Department's easier.
I think
we've done it. We've had presidents do it in the past. Nixon has done it.
We have. Yes, Nixon has done it, but Nixon did it because Congress passed a specific Reorganization Act, which gave him authority to do it for a period of 1.5 years. So when Congress says you can do it, you can do it. No, the last time it was used as Reagan. It was also used under Nixon.
Well, regardless of that, Trump
departments are generally set up by Congress.
That's an important point if that's true.
Yeah. So because departments are, the executive departments and agencies are set up by Congress, like, basically they're like these, it's a terrible analogy, but like, they're businesses set up and owned by Congress, and then the president's hired as the manager of them is one way of looking at it, right? And so, they have the power of the purse, and they have the power to create departments. They've created this department. USAID was specified through an act from Congress. They've created this department.
No, that's it. No. Yeah. Kennedy created USAID. Kennedy just created it with an EO. It was then later ratified by Congress. It was then later.
That's not what happened. No, that's not what happened at all. I can tell you the exact. It was the Foreign Assistance Act that was passed by Congress in 1961.
That's what enabled it to become that's what put it under the Congress. But it was USAID was literally signed into being by an executive order by JFK.
No, I understand. And the reason why it was signed into being is because Congress passed a statute, the Foreign Assistance Act. This was before USAID, and it ordered the president to create some agency that would fulfill the tasks.
Congress doesn't order the president to do anything. That's backwards.
Well, no. If it says if it says that this is the agency, the president shall create an agency in compliance with X, blah, 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 blah. That is Congress creating the agency. Yes, I know
That is correct.
JFK named it. They did an EO. He did an EO to like set it up, but this was ordered by Congress. This was ordered by a specific statute passed by Congress. And this is the issue I have with it.
Furthermore, like the Supreme Court, made it a point last year to eliminate like Chevron deference, to say that you have to very closely follow congressional intent when you do anything that touches on something that's statutory. And of
Which is
course,
something
this
Republicans
is
wanted.
obviously statute. So
and this which is something that Republicans wanted specifically.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but
'Cause they didn't like
I'm
presidential power.
reading. I'm reading that we're both kind of right, Lactoid, which is that Nixon abolished the OEO first, and then there was challenges, and then Congress later ratified it because he had restructured it. That he wasn't given temporary approval to do it. That he did it as an executive order, and then it was challenged, and then they ratified it later.
That's exactly what.
Because it was signed into law in '74, the Legal Services Corporation Act of 1974, and so that's what
I'm reading. That he was like Nixon was unsuccessful in abolishing the OEO. He couldn't do it.
I mean, I'm going to defer to you, right? You're obviously far more of a legal authority here. Obviously, I'm far more passionate about, getting rid of USAID no matter what.
And I'm not. Let me specify here, because there's a lot of details in a lot of this stuff, and so I'm not. When it comes to this OEO stuff, I have a general understanding. When it comes to reorganization acts, I have a general understanding, but I also have a general understanding, which is that departments and agencies, etc., with some exception, right? There are a few that are specifically core powers that is given to the executive by the Constitution, and that's why they don't need congressional approval to get them on in certain regards, right? But generally, departments are created by Congress for a specific number of tasks, and then they are, that's why Congress has to basically approve these hearings, right? There's a reason why Tulsi Gabbard needs to get voted on by Congress. It's because Congress has created these agencies and has a say, and this has to do with separation of powers. And so, am I 100% on board with Doge going in and defunding a lot of these things? I am. I worry that the separation of powers here is going to get in some ways get in the way.
So two things. First,
separation didn't exist until
I offered
1998.
a question. I offered a question, and it didn't seem like you answered it, right? Which was, what if the challenge here is that as it's brought into the courts, there's a situation where Congress needs to prove or to claim that the actions of USAID are what they intended to fund. So therefore, they're kind of forced to either claim that they did intend for the CIA to be overturning countries and
the way Trump's
causing race rights and all these other things, or that it was fraudulent, that's not supposed to operate that way, and thus we can shut it down. And number two, the other one being, what if he just declared a state of emergency in saying that this program had gone rogue by the CIA, which is under his purview, and that these funds were being used to make America less safe, et cetera, against his purview? Both of those are options,
and they can be proven.
The exact option that we're dealing with right now.
Lactoid, respond, then we'll go to Ali. Let him in, and then anyone else wants to go.
As to the state of emergency, I don't think that'd be a good idea, nor do I think it's necessarily. I don't think it's necessary. From what I've read of the act thus far, as is the case with most of these departments, they, by their very creation, give a significant amount of deference to the president in terms of directing how they operate. And so, yes, there are congressional bills that authorize funding for XYZ purpose, but basically anything outside of this, the president has power over. So, if I think Trump does have power to go into USAID and to rearrange things and to point out certain wastes of money and to say this is ridiculous, look what's happening here, look what's happening there. I think that they have, and also, for efficiency's sake, there can be alterations and temporary freezes. Right, the president has authorization to freeze funding for non-policy related reasons. Right, and so he can freeze it if he has a reasonable belief that money's being either used inefficiently or being wasted or being used contrary to Congress's will, et cetera. And so I think Trump has the ability here to intervene and to help stop the problem. But it seems like, the I guess the dream here is to just wipe it out entirely, which I would love to get Congress on board with, but I don't know. I don't think. I just don't believe that the president can do that unilaterally.
Can I ask you a
I just
question,
mean
Lactoid?
the court could cause that, though.
I want to go to Ali, and then you want to go next.
I just have a question. So
Okay, all right. We'll go to Ali, then Gibbs, and Grid. You want to go on in? All right.
So it seems like we're gonna defer to Lactoid for a lot of this. So like if you want Trump to have Elon work alongside him, and then come and get rid of all, like you're so pro like Doge getting rid of all of these like 3-letter agencies, whatever, like they don't like. But then that just means that like any president that comes after him can create whatever 4-letter agency they want and get rid of the previous 4-letter. So like right now, it's really surprising to me that you're so against the 3-letter agencies and yet so pro Elon Musk and Doge.
It depends what the agencies do, right? If the agency is focused on shrinking government power and what the president has control over, then this is like a good thing. Like this is what I said before. Like if the president, for example,
if the president has control over U.S. aid, then why wouldn't he just better allocate funds or have better control over it rather than getting rid of it? Which it seems like a power grab. It seems like we're going to get rid of all these agencies.
It's not a power
grab.
Wait, well, I mean, once again, I don't understand it, so this is what it looks like from the outside. So it seems like you're getting rid of all these agencies, and the only person left with power is the president and Doge.
Let me
Well,
explain why
those
it's not a power
agencies are
grab.
executive agencies, right? So if he gets rid of them, then he's getting rid of his own power.
That's,
Congress
kind of.
might fund these agencies, right? And they hold the power of the purse string, right?
Okay.
So there is a balance of power here situation, but they serve under the authority of the presidency, right? So he appoints the leaders, he appoints the staff. Ultimately the president is the one that is in charge of how these agencies run. It's also his duty that to make sure that he either does nothing with them, or if he does use them, that he does so in the way that Congress enacted into law. So if Congress says such and such agency, 3-letter, 4-letter, whatever, is an agency that we fund to the tune of X amount of dollars, and this is what the agency is supposed to do, right? Now, the president, what's debatable is whether or not the president can get rid of that agency, and it probably not. But what's more debatable because it's enacted into law. It's enacted into law, but what he can do without any on the other end of the spectrum, right? The middle ground. The middle ground is about the funding. Can the agency be shrunk or potentially gotten rid of and absorbed into the agency, the 3-letter agency, in this case, the Department of State? That's the middle ground that may or may not be debatable. We'll talk about that in the courts, etc. But what he absolutely has the authority to do is fire everybody working at that agency, put all of his own people in, and say, this is how you're going to use the money. So long as, however he says that is engaged in what the program enacted into, or what the agency enacted into law is supposed to do. So he can fire the director of the FBI, for example, and change how the FBI operates. But what he can't do is put in a guy in the FBI, and then what the FBI now does is they inspect cars, and that's all they do, because that's not what was enacted into law. That's not what it was funded for.
I still don't personally understand how getting rid of.
Well, he hasn't. He's done a freeze.
Let me explain that.
We're talking about what Elon Musk wants, not what the president says.
I understand the question, right? The question is, well, the president's given this power to remove agencies. Isn't this just giving him more power since now he has the ability to remove these agencies? But when we're talking about
even more, if he's in control of these agencies, like you guys are saying, he gets to control them, then stripping them, just he still has control of whatever functions those agencies had, right? He's still in control and power of the functions of those agencies, right? No, what do you mean?
No, that's where you're wrong, right? If U.S. aid, because U.S. aid, because U.S. aid, so money is how you get shit done, right? And U.S. aid gets a certain amount of money from Congress. The president gets to have large power over where that money goes and how that money is spent. Yeah. If none of that money is even at the president's disposal, it's not like that money gets transferred to the president's personal bank account. The president just loses access to that money completely. So they're not able to use that money for their other purposes.
But as an agency, the money is still existent and is going to be allocated somewhere, right?
No, hold on. That's the argument, right? So Trump's
That's the middle
Trump's
ground.
argument is that, and this has been attempted before. Just
By
don't
Trump.
spend the money. Not just by Trump. There was a couple other times this was tried.
Yeah, it was attempted by Nixon too, right? But
it was attempted by Nixon too.
The ICA says that he has 45 days to ask Congress, to do a rescission of funds, right? So that he doesn't have to spend it. So 45 days go by, then he has to spend the funds.
Right.
And this also happened with Ukraine when he tried to pull back Ukraine funding, and he lost that case and he had to spend the money in Ukraine. When I think if anything, the Loper decision makes it that much harder because now on top of all of that, and Nixon and Trump both lost their cases under the ICA there. Now with this Loper decision, he has an additional responsibility to show that he's enacting Congress's will accurately.
Yeah. And that's you're right. That's the difficult
question too. The power thing.
Well, no.
What do you think about my question that I asked? Right,
Ali. I feel like we haven't tied this on a bow yet. You would agree. Okay, so the president has the presidential powers, and then Congress, in their infinite wisdom, has decided to give additional powers to the president via all these different departments the president runs. Okay,
Right.
And the Congress has created these departments for the president to run. If the president chooses to not use the funds allocated to these agencies, in my mind, this would be the president exercising less power as opposed to more power.
Financially,
Well, that was the question put before.
Because you're not funding the agency, but the responsibilities or the duties that these agencies held are going to be there's going to be a vacuum left there, right?
No, they're just not going to do anything.
Did something.
but
and that's something
not
that's just
power of
going
the
to cease.
president.
Okay, well that's to U.S. aid, but does the CIA, for example, apply to this, or these does that apply?
U.S. aid is the CIA.
Yeah,
so if you
theoretically,
Depends on the wording of the
FBI,
statute that you're
theoretically, yeah. So if you have a department and you just entirely let's say tomorrow the president says I'm not funding anything in the Department of Education. It's not like that money goes anywhere else. The power the president has to direct it.
Now you have
You're saying a vacuum in the sense that they're not being something that
maybe I'm wrong.
or look, if the money isn't spent, it just doesn't get spent by Congress.
It's not how power works within our. Sorry. Let me be clear, right? I see what you're trying to say, right? I get it, right? And it's not unreasonable, what the words that are coming out your mouth, right?
Lactoid?
I said
He's saying I'm reasonable.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So it's not unreasonable the words that are coming out of your mouth. I hear that, right? That the agency in the extension of the president's ability, right? And if that extension goes away, well, the president can't do that thing, right?
Yeah.
But so often, the friction in our government, right, is should these things exist at all, right? So let me try to paint this. So a Republican-run Congress decides we're going to make an agency that's going to put a gun in every man, woman, and child's hand, right? Republicans, hooray, right? Let's arm everyone to the teeth, right? President AOC, in her wisdom, decides, no, I'm not going to do that. And so I'm not going to create this, or at least I'm going to take away the funding. And so it doesn't get enacted, right? Now, this was a congressional act, an act of power by Congress, and then the president extended her own power to deny that, right? That's the big friction.
I see your point too.
Yeah,
but I see that
the
point.
better example. I think the better example is the EPA. If a Republican was to completely defund the EPA, right, then you could make the argument that the Republican in that instance is exercising his power in favor of corporate donors or things of that nature,
Sure.
because they don't want those EPA regulations. But overall, usually speaking, that money is not is that he can use to manage regulations, manage who he goes after, manage who he doesn't go after. Like we saw this scandal with the Obama administration targeting Republican institutions with the IRS, right? Like there's a lot of power that he then gives up as a president. Now that power, you could say, creates a power vacuum. And if there are other people that like donated to him or something that wanted that power vacuum, you could certainly say that that is some form of like of power or of like, you know, exercising new presidential power by choosing not to do what Congress wants to do in that regard. But like, but the institution itself has so much more power than choosing not to use the institution.
I just have a quick question. I guess, I mean, it's really for whoever thinks they can explain this. So my personal understanding, right? Congress makes the budget, correct? Right? So, right. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
And then the executive branch decides to control the budget, or like issue the budget how they see fit, for the most
Not
part.
entirely.
No,
Not
no,
There's,
entirely.
there's
No.
appropriation
Okay, sure.
bills.
Hold on. Yeah. So hear me out. This is, I guess, where I would like maybe someone to explain. So let's just give you a hypothetical, like, thought exercise here.
Mhm.
Say we have the organization Butt. I don't know. We're gonna call them butt fuckers, right? And the butt fuckers organization has been not doing a good job, according to the new president that
not
comes in
enough butt
charge.
spots. Yeah,
Not
I hear
enough
you.
butts fucked. It's not working, right? So they come to power. New president. We'll call him Bob. Comes to power. And President Bob goes, "Hey, you know what? Things gonna change around these parts. Now the money's already been issued for him." And he goes, "I don't like any of these people. I'm firing everybody in butt fuckers. They're all getting fired." All right. So so as far as I know, that seems right. He could do that. And then he goes, "Instead of waste the money on this, since I fired everybody, we're just gonna let it sit here with nobody employees except for the barest minimum to call it an organization. And it's basically just gonna be an organization in name only, and the money's gonna sit here paying the most minimum number of people I can have to make sure it's an organization. Maybe it's 3 people, maybe it's 300, I don't know. Would that be acceptable by a president? Is that something they could-
Probably not, because the money has to be spent. The money that Congress appropriates has to be spent.
Okay,
And so the idea is, what do you spend it on, right? And so, like, for example,
follow up then, right? So if it's allocated for butt fuckers, right? And he goes, "Okay, well, we know they're not working. Let's say we'll call him Sally. We'll call her Sally. Sally's the new person Bob's put in charge of butt fuckers. She goes, "Well, we're really trying not to do anything with this organization. I'm going to give it to the jerk off organization. We're going to basically help them under the idea of organization cooperation." Is that something they could do?
the butt fuck.
Yeah.
So the president could put an executive order saying that the jerk off association is their interests are strongly tied with the butt fuckers, and it is within the congressional scope of expanding butt fucking to help the jerk off association in
This is really
XYZ way.
clarifying everything.
And then they make that argument.
Right.
And then before the removal of Chevron, the courts would have been like, yeah, that would give them deference because,
Okay.
they're the executive agency.
Well, so
But
here's-
now they
Sure,
might
I
say,
understand.
well, I think Congress didn't actually mean this to go to the jerk offs.
so-
It's meant to go for
yeah,
butt fucking. And then that's going to be the argument.
So Admiral, so here's the other thing.
specifically
Here's the
Extra
other
layer to
thing.
that.
So there's another thing here when it comes to like appointees, right? So many of these positions are subject to congressional approval, right? Like you're seeing the Senate and the congressional approval hearings for like Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, right? These have been, but like a lot of these positions are subject to approval, and Congress and the Senate only have they don't do special sessions unless there's like an emergency. And so what Trump could do in regard to the butt fucking organization, right? Now the butt fucking organization has to fuck butts. Let's assume, right? Now Obama said, butt fucking is, we needed to be more equitable. So we want to use this money to fuck as many butts as we possibly can. And Trump is like, well, I don't actually like butt fucking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take like, the head CEOs of, I'm going to target butt fucking over and over again on the head CEOs of like, healthcare, pharmacy corporations, right? And that's popular with some people and not popular with others. So they get to choose like, who's being targeted for the butt fucking, and et cetera, but they still have to engage in butt fucking. Now, the thing that Trump could do in this example is he could defund and not appoint people. He could fire a bunch of people and then he could just like not push things through. But we saw this when Trump came into office with judges, especially when he came into office, which is that if you choose not to appoint a bunch of people and you leave a bunch of positions open, Well, then what the next president can do is they can come in, and a lot of these positions that are like that, that are now that are vacant, they can immediately start hiring and pushing these through people when they have a mandate. So it's in the president's best interest for his political party, et cetera, right? To, if you fire people and defang it, to recognize that if you don't put new people in those positions, the incoming administration after you're gone will have a fuckload of vacancies, and now they can hire all their own people to go into these institutions. So it's kind of in your best interest in a lot of these, especially when they're set up specifically by Congress to have, because like when you look at laws for new agencies, they're really detailed and like, oh, there needs to be people for this and people for that and people for this, and then new laws will come in that say like, oh, 3 to 12 jobs need to be created, for this new purview, et cetera, right? So there's all of these jobs are positions that are specifically created by law in Congress. And when you make those positions vacant, if you don't fill those positions, then the incoming administration has like all of these empty positions that can be filled. So there's a little bit of power.
Yeah. So this has been a fascinating trip afield. However, back to Trump and what he can do with the to not necessarily get rid of U.S. aid, but to manage it better or fold it into the State Department is, and what I believe he's going to end up doing with all of the administration and most of the employees there is he can simply find them incompetent, neglect. He can find them guilty of incompetence, neglect, and mismanagement. All of those he can do, and he can absolutely remove them from their position and put the people he wants in there, or he can simply consolidate jobs. There's probably somewhere there's a table of organization. It's when they have that table of organization, that within the agency very well may be editable by Trump or Doge or some other agency. Congress can't say you've got to have 100 people working here and you've got to have 10,000 people working there and all of that. They don't micromanage like that. That's a Department of it's the DOO. It doesn't matter.
Office of Personnel Management, maybe.
Huh?
Office of Personnel Management.
It is OPM, maybe, but it's something else that has to do with the payroll and all of that. They actually write the DOE, and Trump absolutely can. We were so far afield talking about appointees. Trump can simply find an appointee incompetent and say, you know what, you're incompetent, you suck at your job, get out of here, and that's the end of it. They can't even take him to court over it. I mean, they can try to maybe do like some.
Well, hold on. If you're talking about finding somebody incompetent, then you're talking about firing somebody for cause. And like in his first administration, like Trump constantly ran into problems when he wanted to get rid of people, and then he had to show cause for doing so, and that was a roadblock that he ran into over and over again. So,
and that's why he's created the Doge this time.
Well, sure, but the Doge would still have to deal with the courts. The courts would still have to determine whether or not there's cause in each and every one of these cases. Now, maybe he's ready to
Doge is an investigatory agency,
in
though,
a way that allows him to prove this in ways that he couldn't in his first term. Like that might be the case
because they're an investigatory
unless
agency.
the president, unless it's revoked. What's that one? The thing that the job protections for employees. What was it called again? I forget what it was called, but it was like something.
Schedule F, like
Schedule F. Schedule F. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys?
If that gets revoked, then he's got a lot more power just to.
Well, I think Schedule F is the thing that he's adding to get rid of the power. If I'm remembering that correctly, Schedule F is like the amendment. My understanding.
I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but on my show earlier today, we were talking, and one of my guys is a government contractor, and apparently. The government's been sending out letters to various departments saying to especially to senior people that are older, they're saying if you retire now, they'll pay you off, and it's some ridiculous number. I forgot. It's like $70,000 or $80,000 just to
and that
walk
was
away.
Stupid. Yeah, but that was so this has been well publicized. This letter that was sent out, and this is clearly it came from Elon Musk. Right, without a doubt. This came from Elon Musk. How do we know it came up from Elon Musk? Because he sent almost the exact same letter.
It's what he did with Twitter.
To Twitter, yeah.
Yeah.
So when he first took charge of Twitter, he sent a similar message like, "Oh, hey, the only people we want are the ones who follow these principles, and we're going to be hardcore.
Hell
We're
yeah,
gonna be
based.
working
Yeah.
so many hours and all the fuck, right? And respond to this email if you are going to resign. Otherwise, and you'll get like a severance package. And
Mhm.
otherwise, you'll get fired, right?
Right.
There were shenanigans on
Hell
whether
yeah,
those
brother.
people. Hold on. There were shenanigans about whether those people actually, the people who responded to that, got any sort of severance at all. So that in itself was an issue because Elon Musk is a criminal, right? Just like Trump, doesn't like to pay people. But for the letter that you're mentioning, right? So it has like
It gives more of the dog, less of you.
It has much of the same verbiage that you're talking about, and it's not at all clear that Trump can do that, right? That there is a budget because it was saying it wasn't simply like some sort of lump sum. It was like, well, you'll have a severance package and you'll keep getting paid for X number of months, right? Even if you're not showing up. I mean, you're done,
Sure.
you're leaving, you're not showing up, but you'll still get paid. There is no a budget line for that. That doesn't exist, right? That's a lie, right? Another lie. But and so the workers unions or cooperatives, whatever they're called within the government, have been telling their employees absolutely don't do this because they can't actually follow. You can leave your job, right? But you won't be having these assurances. And this is another level of chaos that's going on within the newly minted Trump administration.
Gibbs,
Well, I hope he can do it, and I
Gibbs,
hope he
I
does
think
it.
more of you now that I know
Yes,
you have a
true.
husky. I think more of you now that you have a husky.
That's not my husky. I'm just babysitting for these hot hoochie mamas.
Dog's it.
Yeah,
listen,
the
The
problem
dog
here
is
that
cooler
Twitter-
than you.
Yeah,
the
probably.
problem here is that Twitter didn't have to abide by the Loper decision. So I don't know. Like there was no like congressional intent, or in this case, it would have been stockholders, I suppose, because he owned everything outright. So far, he doesn't own the government outright, and the president doesn't own the government outright either. So there are separation of powers like is still in play. You're still going to have to abide by congressional intent, more so now than in his first term.
Yeah, I don't see how.
I
don't see
offered a
how-
question, and
Hold on.
multiple
I
times
don't-
people haven't answered the question.
Okay, well, I don't see how, like, people are. You guys are celebrating this. Well, I mean, Scott, sure, all right, but like, especially
I'm
any
celebrating.
other concern. Yeah, okay, Gibbs. I don't understand how you are celebrating this, right? President AOC, in all her wisdom, right, decides to
Those two words have
defund,
never been used
the border
together before.
the border patrol, right? She talked about this. In fact, she's talked about this before.
She has.
Yeah. So like President AOC decides unilaterally that this agency disappears, right? And Congress can't do anything. You would agree? Well, then she should be able to do that, right?
I would agree. I would agree.
Okay,
Yeah,
and then she should
Yeah.
be able to reduce
Sanctuary cities follows the
the military, right, by as much as she wants, right? As much as a leftist thinks the U.S. military should be, right? She should be able to do all that, right? Like despite that Congress says, hey, here's
When are you going to get to the part I disagree
$1
with?
plus dollars to enact our will, that without making any sort of fight within Congress, right? Like not about taking her case to the American
I'm a
people,
states'
not
rights
taking
guy.
any-
You're
right?
talking about federal
She gets
stuff I don't
to,
agree with anyway.
decide, right, on her own. These are all gone, right? And anything else, any other agency that serves the needs of the good people of the red states, really, she gets a give rid of that as well.
Prime,
Like,
bro.
clearly there
Dude.
is
I'm good with everything you
Congrats- you're
said. I'm a
discovering
states' rights guy.
Scott. I know you feel differently, but I know that other conservatives they say, right? They pretend, oh, we want a smaller government. They want a government that serves their own interests. They want a government with departments and agencies that takes care of their material needs. They look at their material needs differently than people in other parts of a political spectrum, right? But they have those material needs. Not you, ANCAP. I get you. You're different, right? A different breed. But
I'm not an
all
ANCAP.
the conservatives, they're bullshitting when they're saying, yes, we want a smaller government, because when government breaks, oh boy, do they complain. oh boy, do they have a problem. When the agriculture department isn't there for
Well, yeah, don't ask me.
farmers.
There's two conservatives here that disagree with you.
Yeah,
that are ANCAPs.
other
Prime,
farmers.
I think
Who's-
you're probably.
who's
I
not
don't know, it's
disagreeing
like,
with
I think we can all agree. Like, if something like that happened, yeah, I think that you would see a lot of conservatives be pissed. A lot of the kind of populist right is actually fine with government expenditure and government growth, just as long as it's within a certain niche areas that are particularly important to them. And so taking your point where it's like, and this is why I think it's kind of difficult, because in one respect, like the AOC gun example, I would argue that AOC is limiting her own power by not handing out the guns, right? Because this costs money, this requires organization, this requires the president to have the ability to proliferate items across the whole country. This is a massive expansion of her power. I think that not doing that, by cutting that to zero, that's a reduction in her power in one sense. But then what you're saying is it's actually an expansion of her power in this other sense, because not doing something that Congress wants you to do is a challenge to Congress, even if it's a reduction of like the size of government and a reduction of like her own just ability to control things, right? Or I guess to change, decide the direction of an agency or how it's going to do things. That's all fine. That's all fine. What I mean by like the power that I'm interested, I get excited when the first power is reduced, right? When you have government shrinking. And so if I see a politician use power to reduce their own power, this is power that I'm not super skeptical of, because they're not expanding themselves. They're not expanding themselves into my life or your life or anything like that. But if they use power to expand their power, I'm pretty skeptical of this unless they have some very good justification, right? So that's kind of where I'm at with this. If President Trump is using his power to cut government waste, this is something that I'm not super skeptical of. I think it's a good thing. If he used his power to expand the government in certain respects, which he has, I'm concerned about that. I can be skeptical about that, right?
So are you skeptical of like Doge? Because I feel like Doge is like an expansion of government, and honestly, you're not worried that, like.
Well,
I don't think
Doge is
not in the first sense.
cutting power.
Guys, relax. I promise. I'm just asking a question.
Yeah,
so,
but
like,
we've answered this question like 20 times. Like we were talking, like Doge is designed to cut government fraud, waste, and abuse. Okay, it is in what way?
Well, he's right,
is it
though,
an expansion
Fabian.
of
It is an
power?
expansion.
okay, here I'll give you one way. It's some random billionaire that gets to come into the government, and he's the one picking the government agencies to cut. It's Donald Trump agrees with Elon. It's not Donald Trump like has these agencies that he's like picking out. It's Elon that's coming in and snipping in your agency, and it's like, yeah, dude's kind of playing vice president. That should be concerning to a lot of people.
First of all, vice presidents have throughout all of American history has been seen as nothing more than a symbolic position.
Figurehead.
The vice president's powers exist that if the president's killed or is taken out of commission due to medical surgery or something, right? And that's only recently in terms of like medical positions,
then.
right?
Symbolically,
that
they
like
Elon is the vice
okay,
president.
listen.
Point you're trying to get
right,
out.
right. The vice presidency has been a stepping stone. Even and historically, it hasn't even been vice president. Historically, it has been the head of the Department of State. So again, it is a position that is not designed to have a lot of power. They preside over the Senate for like rule-based systems and a tie-breaking vote, but ultimately they don't have that
Then
much
it's
power.
weird that Elon
Nevertheless,
has more power
Elon
than the
Musk-
vice president. Then, like, if
Elon Musk doesn't have any power whatsoever to cut a single agency. He does not have that power. He has the power to gain information and then report to the president what he thinks as he has been appointed by the president.
Who is he
But
fired
he
like?
can't do
Floyd?
anything.
Not like Floyd, sociologic.
Donald Trump is the one that is able to make those.
That's
those
who's he
decisions.
fired?
Ollie, have you seen that meme where it's like libertarians secretly plotting to take over the world and leave you alone? Have you seen that meme? It's like very prolific all over the internet.
I want to
but, like,
respond.
yeah.
Sure. So like you guys are really focused on like to take over the whole world. part,
Doge
and
isn't
what we're
creating
looking at
anything.
is to leave you alone.
No. I don't think
We have to
I don't
say
think
that
it's to take over the world.
investigative.
I'm saying you're giving a lot of praise. You're giving a lot of praise to like cutting off these agencies, right? And like once again, from an outside perspective, it seems like, okay, you're getting rid of these agencies, but then you're
Well,
implementing.
we're talking about USAID
other
because
ones.
USAID is fucking evil.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
one agency
Yeah,
with the
first
power
one,
to
like the
reduce
event-
the power of the other agencies. Doge doesn't like do anything in of itself other than reduce other
Other than
departments'
All it
power.
does is investigate
Other
and
than
report.
other than reduce the power of other departments. That's the
Hold
whole
on.
purpose.
Hold on. No. But the way that you're expressing it is weird, right? And I can understand why Ali might be confused about this. And that, like, to say that Doge is powerless, well, because it's just an investigatory agency. What do you mean? What? Investigatory agencies have a lot of fucking power. Actually, yeah. If their recommendations are followed through, right? It doesn't matter if they pull the trigger themselves or they tell the president to pull the trigger.
They also have a lot
But
of
their
investigatory
only
power generally.
recommendations are to cut government spending and funds, which are an exertion of their power.
I know you love it.
Cool.
Gotcha.
Like
Yeah,
that's what the
whatever.
worry is.
But
The worry is that they will come in and cut government funding and
Oh my God.
positions,
Calm
which
down.
is
Calm
state
down.
power.
Okay.
Calm down. Okay. All right. We got
I'm
it. You got it.
calm.
You love it. You
I'm
love it.
perfectly calm.
So let's pull it back.
It's actually the calmest
Um,
I've seen Scott
It's
on the show.
weird to interpret Doge as having little power. Now I get it's doing what you want it to do, right? I get that this is all happy days for you all. Fair enough, right? But what I'm saying that the normal people, right? The rest of the world looking into this, right? The way that our friend Ali is looking at it, right? They're like, well, no, Elon Musk has just got a shit ton of power. This moment with USAID, I believe it was a few agencies that were talked about over the weekend, right? But like, if it's, I believe it was USAID, in which like the department heads were given a leave of absence because now Doge wanted access to various parts.
Yeah, because they tried to lock him out of the mainframe. That's why.
That's an exercise of power. Now, again, they're just investigatory, right? But they say, hey, they reach out to the president.
Okay,
this guy's not cooperating.
So you just defined exactly why they're supposed to work.
No, I'm not gonna hold on. No, because I'm not done. Thank you. Not gonna hold on. So, right, when others recognize this about Doge and it's a level of power, right? Just like what happened with the Treasury, within the Treasury Department, within that specific office that disperses funds, right? The person there who was in charge, he also didn't want Elon Musk's goons coming in. He was there for 30 fucking years, 30, 40 years, this individual, an expert in federal
sounds like an
funds
expert leech.
Yes, okay. Federal funds disbursement, right? And he also protests Elon Musk goons getting in there. And but it happened.
Well, you just called them goons. What the hell, man?
Hold on. You all wait till I'm done. Thank you. So when others are watching this, right? When they're watching these battles take place, it sends a clear signal who's actually in charge, where power actually lies, right? Clearly, as our friend Ali has identified, power lies in Doge, right? Power lies within Elon Musk, right? Only at the pleasure of the presidency, sure, great. But as of now, power lies with them. You have to respect when Doge comes in, right?
No.
You have to cooperate unconditionally with their demands, right? If they want access to your systems, if they want to attach computer system, attach surveillance monitoring software to your system,
you're doing.
They do that.
You're explaining a whole bunch of things that they can do. You're glossing over the argument. You're just gish galloping over it.
Holy shit, Scott! You don't have to talk. You've had enough time to talk, right? Yes, I'm going to gish gallop. Let me do it. Let me cook. Thank you. Right? You're not making this end any sooner. I will finish. Thank you.
I get it.
And I'd like to go
It's just silly at this point.
Great. Hold on. No, don't. I'm just gonna meet you because you can't handle it. Fine. Shut up. Really appreciate it. Okay. Shut the fuck up. God damn it. Right? Holy shit. Very simple. I shut up when you were talking, but you can't shut the fuck up when I'm talking. Shut the fuck up. Thank you. Now I'll continue. Any which way. Yes, it shows these who's in charge. They can do whatever they want at this point. So, Lactoid, now I'll speak to you. It's a weird formulation to say that these things have, these individuals have little power just because they're investigatory agency. Does that make sense?
I understand your argument the whole time. What I'm trying to, I feel like maybe you're missing my point.
Okay.
Like when you download it, so look. Let's say I got a computer full of viruses, and I'm like, I'm sick of these programs having power over my computer. So then I download an antivirus. Are you going to say, I thought you were sick of programs having power over your computer? You just downloaded an antivirus that has access to your whole computer.
Hold on.
Why are you like?
But the purpose, Gibbs,
That's a great analogy. Actually,
Elon, how much?
The
was
purpose,
the, cake?
the purpose. It came free. Okay, he knows what I'm doing. The purpose of the antivirus. The purpose of the antivirus is to reduce or eliminate the power of all the other viruses, right? Is to, and that, yes, you download one more program that has access to everything. But if you remove 50 programs that have access to everything,
can I build a bridge?
You are net good. You are net in the clear.
That one program has a lot of power, right?
Yeah.
It does. But now there's fewer programs that have power over my computer once I wipe out all the viruses.
Now one has power. So it's have you seen the meme circulating where it's like, I want less government, so government gets smaller. I want less government.
I've seen that. But the antivirus, but unlike the other viruses, the antivirus, the software, is tasked with one goal and one goal only: to remove the other viruses. Unlike the viruses where they're doing all sorts of shit to your computer, the antivirus, although it has a lot of control, is tasked with one thing only.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this is how it's going to go tonight. Prime is all up in his emotions because he cannot
massively powerful thing.
Deal with the fact that
is to remove oppressive power.
It's going to be.
So I want to build a little bit of a bridge here.
He just can't deal with it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what your liberals look like in real time. Seriously, Shelby, love you, brother. Good to see you. Glad you're doing your PT. Glad you're in the Navy. Glad all of those things are happening good in your life. And seriously happy to see Shelby
right now. Like they seem to be
in the chat. That's awesome.
Hit people in the face.
Right.
They're coming in. It's not just investigatory because they're investigating, then they're making cuts, right? They have a lot of power. Now, as the Prime said earlier, with the AOC wanting to cut border control, sure, there are a lot of programs. I think that whoever gets in power should go in there and be able to cut left or right, either way. Whoever's in power. The thing about Doge is kind of what Lactoid is saying is it seems like their goal is to identify what they see as bloat and eliminate it. Now, whether or not that's true, that could be a whole different thing, but that's what their stated goal is, right? So whenever we have one agency, which I don't blame any of these agencies for fighting to maintain the power they have, but they are going to do that. They're going to fight to maintain the power they have. When Doge comes in and goes, hey, we need to see your stuff, and they go, we're going to call the marshals. Sure, there's going to be some kind of butting heads. We're going to see you get the power. I absolutely agree that Trump expanded the power of the U.S. government by creating Doge. That's not a debate. I don't think that really is a debate. However, I do think that this is a case where it's supposed to, and hopefully it does do this, and it looks like that's what they're doing, is they're going in and they are eliminating bloat. And it looks like if the goal of an agency is to sit here and actually curtail government power, then I would say that, hey, yes, we might have to give them more power in order to accomplish the second goal, which is to eliminate power. Do y'all disagree with that concept that we have to have an agency to curtail power, or y'all are just they only gain power all the time? Is that kind of where you're at?
I just want to know who Grid 1 is.
Well, Smoking Spaceman, he does live in his mom's basement. So,
Yeah, we got Indiana Grid.
It's Admiral Gibbs. It's
Indiana Grid? Right? That's funny.
I agree. No one here is saying that Elon Musk doesn't have any power. What we are saying, or that Doge doesn't have any power. What we are saying is that the goal of Doge, the stated goal of Doge, what Doge is capable of doing is investigating the state and then going to the president to say, these are the institutions of your power. These are things that you have power over and you have funds for as the president. And we would like to get rid of these specific aspects of your power. The entire what Doge does is reduce the president's power. That is the goal of Doge, is to reduce his own power in such a way that it presumably saves money or that it reduces deficit, like it reduces deficit spending, etc. Like, I agree that Elon Musk has a lot of influence over the president, that he's talking to that's a lot of soft power. I agree that he has the capacity to go in and investigate in areas, but everything that his job entails is to find areas where the president's authority and power is being used in such a way that it's not a good return on investment, and then say, get rid of those things, get rid of these programs, get rid of these tentacles of the Leviathan, because they're not helping our country, they're not helping the taxpayer,
and we trust
etc.
him. Why?
Well, I mean, who else? Like, who's
It's
gonna-
not a matter.
Elon Musk,
it's
why?
listen,
Well,
it's
who-
not a
who
matter.
else-
Hold on,
Because he's awesome.
hold on.
Look
This
at
is
X
hold on,
now.
hold on, hold on.
Sociological-
This is
who else
this
are
is
we
a
gonna
goal.
trust?
This is an immediate goalpost shift, because listen,
It
this
is
is
a
an
goalpost
immediate
shift.
goalpost shift. You don't trust him. Fine, you don't trust him. I don't trust any goddamn politician and anybody working
He's
for
not
the
a
state.
politician.
But
Well, that's even better.
he
argument.
absolutely is acting like one.
He kind of is
He's
now.
acting on. He is now. He's an unelected bureaucrat that is also a billionaire. I don't fucking trust Elon Musk.
He's also South African and not natural born. If you like that kind of
I don't.
person, yeah,
I don't give a
if-
fuck. I don't
we-
personally give a fuck about that.
when
But
someone's
again,
running the country,
these.
or is that close to someone who's running the country?
Is it a coincidence that Trump just recently came out in favor of the white South Africans? I don't know.
Hold the fuck on. I
Holding the fuck
explained
He's
this
trying to stop a
thing that you
genocide,
are
Black Boy. He's trying to
aggressively
stop a genocide.
misunderstanding this entire time, which is that you are aggressively misunderstanding the
because you say
very
it doesn't make it
simple
true.
idea that Doge is cutting government programs, or at the very not cutting explicitly,
but
because
Fabian,
it's
hold on. It
technically
is a
outside of the
powerful
government.
organization.
No.
Let him repeat,
No.
let him repeat,
No.
let him repeat,
I'm
let
not.
him
I'm not
repeat.
gonna.
It's okay, go ahead,
I'm not
Fabian,
gonna
go on.
let you shift from the fucking argument
shift,
that
but
you
you can
tried to fucking hold. Yes, you did. You were like, "Whoa, South African. Oh, why do we trust him?" That's
mentioned
not
that
the
in
point.
opening
The
statement.
point
That was
is
not
that the
opening
argument isn't that this guy doesn't have soft power. The argument isn't that the institution doesn't have power. The argument is that the sole goal and the power that has been invested in them is to investigate portions of the president's
you
power
trust
and
that?
destroy them.
Well, hold on,
Why do
Fabian.
you
I didn't
trust
say I
that?
trust it.
Fabian,
It's
just to
no.
play
Now
devil's
this is a
advocate-
new
Hold on,
argument.
Hold on,
That's what-
Fabian.
I mean-
Fabian,
I
just to
trust
play
it.
devil's advocate.
I'm not
I-
defending. I'm not
Hold
defending
on.
Doge as the next
Hold
great
on,
thing. You're adding new straw
mean, you
mans
said
because
if-
you
No,
didn't
hold on,
understand
Fabian,
the
hold
original
on.
portion.
So-
Well,
Okay,
wait,
so-
if you wait. You said if Trump gets rid of U.S. aid, which would be to Elon and Doge's recommendation, that he would be the greatest president ever in time ever. So that means that, like, yeah, you are kind of saying that you do trust Doge and think Doge is great.
I'm not.
No, he
I
doesn't-
didn't.
he doesn't think that.
Those
No,
two
those
things
two
are
things
complete.
are not
Those are two
mutually
totally
exclusive.
different things.
But hold on, I want
I
to
said,
say
I
something
said,
here
if
that
he
maybe
gets rid of
supports
U.S. aid,
sociologic
which is
stuff.
an evil fucking program, and no one apparently disagrees with me because we're just completely circumnavigated how awful
Yeah.
U.S. aid
Well,
is, which to me feels a little fucking subversive because it feels like we want to talk about the fucking power systems and all this other shit
Well, hold
instead of
on,
talking
let's talk
about
about
the
that.
fucking most evil program the government has
yeah,
ever
yeah,
enacted
that's what really
being fucking
matters.
gotten rid of. I'm saying that if he gets rid of that would be an amazing thing for
okay, I
humanity.
know.
Hold
That
on,
is
hold
not
on.
the same thing as me saying I trust Elon Musk or
I-
Doge.
I
That's
want
At the
bullshit.
recommendation of who? At the recommendation of Doge, which is why me and Prime are kind of being like, hey, it kind of seems like Doge has a lot of power. Elon has a lot of power. If Elon's the one that's kind of making these recommendations and it's coming through Doge, then yeah, this is something.
So you want Doge to hold on. So let
Well, hold on. I want to
And
jump
that's
in.
kind of
That has
you want
nothing to
USA
do
to
with my
exist.
arguments.
The simple question
No,
here
I
is
mean, I guess I'm not
he
saying
right
that,
or
but
is he
you're
wrong?
not- you're
I don't
not
care about his
You don't
motivations.
champion Doge, Fabian?
Well,
You don't want government to get smaller? You don't want-
I have literally talked shit on Elon Musk so many fucking times. I talked shit on Trump so many
I did
fucking
too,
times,
actually.
and I've said openly many times that I'm distrustful of the concept of Doge because I don't like creating a department that is supposed to then go out and do these things. Because I've said in the past, what happens when a leftist gets in charge and all of a sudden they redefine fraud, waste, and abuse as institutions that don't have equitable outcomes, and so they utilize a system just like Doge to go after any place that doesn't have enough DEI or something.
Well, hold on. They're still limited by Congress,
I just
though.
want to make sure that me and him are yelling at each other for something, not over each other. You just care that U.S. aid gets gone no matter what. Doge, Trump, Biden, doesn't matter as long as U.S. aid was gone, right? Like,
Well,
I just
I'm
want to make
saying
sure, like,
USAID is evil. I would like to get
Yes.
rid of it. If that happens, that would be great. Yes,
let's
go-
that's not
that's
me
that's your
simping
argument.
for
Just to be
Elon
clear,
or
the
Doge.
left,
let's
the,
let
Black, I've
Grid
been arguing with you this whole time.
let's go
the left in control of Doge wouldn't do anything for the
Iko,
left.
do you want to have something?
Yeah,
to
just
say?
quickly, there is some hidden clash in this panel, and I think it's between Scott and Gibbs, right? Because everything Scott mentioned, and I agree with him, like on most of what USAID has done. And I'm arguing for reform, not defunding, but whatever. The disagreement, though, is everything that Scott mentioned is stuff that I've heard Gibbs in the past say is based, and he wants more of. He wants to have more client states to the United States.
I agree. Yeah, it's true.
If he can start a race war in order to defeat the Belt and Road
China?
Initiative, then he wants that. Like, these are all things that he wants. So I don't see how eliminating USAID benefits any of the goals that Gibbs says.
That's
Sure.
that's
I
a
mean,
position
before-
of like
Before you
fucking
start-
0.1% of
before you-
Americans would represent.
Before you two respond to that, let's give Grid the chance. He's been trying to get in, so
Sure.
and
Yeah.
go at it.
I'm
I'll
just.
go after it.
It seems very curious to me that I'm not a particular fan of Elon Musk. I've always thought he was kind of a weird dude, but what he's doing in this case is right. I mean, he's not screwing up. He's not acting in an evil way. I honestly don't really care too much about his, like, I don't need to think he's a good person for him to do a good job and do the thing that needs to be done. He can be perfectly evil inside as long as he does a job that needs to get done. I don't have to live with the dude. He's not my neighbor. He doesn't matter at all in that manner to me. What does matter is his specific type of autism is going to make the government more efficient, spend less of my tax dollars, and possibly get rid of horrible programs that should never have existed in the first place. And that's what matters. I honestly don't give a shit about any of the rest of this stuff that you guys have spent a couple of minutes arguing about and moving goalposts and trying to prove a point that doesn't matter. I don't care that you
No
feel like he has more power. He's not an elected official. He couldn't even get in without Trump's saying, hey, yeah, you got to let him in, right? Like Daddy Trump had to go over there and say, you got to let him in. So what power does he have at that point?
Let's let in.
Just no goalpost removes. Everything was understood. I just want it to be clear.
So Gibbs, go ahead.
Oh, those goalposts went to Saturn, baby.
Aggressively understood.
So I want to address a couple of things. One, I will say I'm about to agree with you sociological some stuff. I do think there was a goalpost move with the Elon thing. One, and the reason, and this is the first thing, I don't give a shit if it's Elon running it. I don't care if it's Bob Saget running it. Somebody got to run it. I don't trust any of the fuckers
Bob
anyway.
Saget? Okay.
Yeah, I
right.
mean, listen. I don't. The point is, I don't trust any of these fuckers in the big government to run it. Now, I'm going to build a bridge here. I'm trying to build a as a conservative. I fucking don't like bigger government. If you are trying to tell me that Doge is not an increase in government power, then you're fucking lying and you're not being good faith. It's absolutely an increase in government power, and that should be concerning to a degree. Now, as for what we'll come back to that in a second, but as for what Iko said, I don't necessarily have so much a problem with USA getting gutted because I think they're fucking inept. Now, we can debate whether or not they're actually successful in these goals. I would rather, for example, Fabian's going to call this evil, but I guess I'm evil, so that's okay. I'm going to say if they came out and said we absolutely had a CIA front, and they were trying to get access to XYZ resources in fucking, I don't know, Nigeria, and guess what? We tried to fund these people via this aid contract thing, which was a front. Then you know what?
Oh no.
I would be okay with that. I would be good with that because
Yeah,
guess
I
what?
thought-
That's
I saw that
expanding
coming.
American power. That would I be okay with. But that's not what's currently happening with USAID. They're just giving money away for things like, and I quote Langford, grants to sit here to like $200,000 to study butchers' languages in France.
No,
that
they're
are
doing bad
dying out.
shit too, Gibbs.
Sure,
Don't worry.
Sure. Either way, that's such bullshit. That needs to be eliminated. Now, I am concerned, though, that you're right. Elon has targeted certain things to start off. Maybe he's picking low-hanging fruit from the start. I don't know. But why is it, though, that he hasn't gone after the ATF? Why is it though he hasn't gone after some of these other 3-letter agencies that are like pretty sus? You know, I like on the one hand, I would think that Elon, the first agency he would have gone after, would have been the SEC. He didn't do that, so interesting. I would have surprised that he didn't go after, I don't know, the FBI agencies that investigate financial crimes. I would think these
Well,
would be
they
the
are
agencies
going after
he
the
was
FBI.
sure, but they're not going after the
Well, they had
financial crimes.
51 agents
Hold
for
Hold on. Were they the
Vinci.
financial crimes department? No, they weren't. All right, cool. So the
I
point
don't
is
know.
that I'm trying to make that if he was actually corrupt, I would think he would go after those. But what is suspicious is he's not going after these agencies that, like, hey, seem to have unanimous disapproval. Like, if he wouldn't cut in the ATF, I don't think that the left, although they like the meme and say the right, like, does like, I don't think the left would actually be upset if the ATF got all their shit pushed.
I think they would.
But really, I don't know. We can come back to
The
that.
agency that prevents people from having automatic weapons,
yeah,
yeah, they're going to be upset.
Sure. But as for ICAL's point,
it
yeah,
prevents
I
law-abiding
okay if they were
citizens from
CIA
having
fronts,
automatic
but instead we're
weapons.
not admitting that, and we're not seeing any goals accomplished. So yeah, let's cut these funding to these countries because we're getting fucked all around. We're giving money to countries that hate us. They chant death to America and half these Middle East countries, and then we're still giving them funds and training. Look, I could go down to the military base 3 miles from my house, and guess what? There's Saudi Apache pilots everywhere. Right, and guess what? They're all cool people. I like them, but
They
guess
only
what?
chant death to America because you fund the other country that they hate too. So it's like a whole. It's a cycle.
Exactly. It's a cycle. We're sitting here like,
if you get rid of one funding, maybe they stop hating you. See,
maybe they stop hating us.
Admiral,
it's amazing.
Admiral Gibbs.
See?
Admiral
Give us
Gibbs.
more money
Admiral
to
Gibbs.
spend it at home.
Yeah, lactose.
Admiral
no
Gibbs.
argument
As
there,
much
bud,
as
huh?
as much as I hate that you probably support what the fuck I'm about to say. You're what you have to understand is like these people are not as incompetent as everyone is putting them out to be. They see these grants. They see these grants for like study butcher's language, etc. And what you think is, well, that's a dumb use of money. Like that money could be utilized in a different way. But when you listen to these people in their own internal communications at their like at these like fucking resorts where they like train other people at NGOs, etc., they will constantly use this phrase called a whole of society approach. This is a whole of society problem. This is a whole of society. And what does a whole of society mean? It is what they're talking about is democratic institutions. They no longer say that the America is in support of democracy. They're in support of democratic institutions. So what the CIA does, let me, but this is what they do. So what the CIA does is they fund universities, they fund media organizations, especially with programs like National Endowment for Democracy Fund. They fund government politicians and campaigns. They fund all of these ways. And what they do is they fund them with bullshit research like you're talking about. And the reason they fund them with
they have an actual study on this. That's the worst part.
But the reason that they fund these bullshit studies is because these bullshit studies, those institutions then end up money laundering or just putting those into administrative costs, etc. But listen. When they do these bullshit things, what they're doing is they are purchasing power. They are purchasing one university that supports their ideals over another university so that they can push and shape culture so that they can gain things like cultural revolutions, etc.
Because it's not been working, Fabian. It's not been working.
That's number one. Number two is they engage in massive amounts of money laundering. So another example is there was a program called the Zune. What is it? Zune Zion. I have it written down here if I want to get the exact thing.
Before you move to number two, essentially, Fabian, real quick question, Fabian. If they say, let's just go look at
Zune.
Yeah, we'll move to the second thing, but just real quick, let's butcher's thing, which is I don't think it is. I've seen the fucking stupid Langford thing on it. If let's just say it was to buy university to push American influence or whatever, there is no evidence that a lot of these programs have got the results the CIA has wanted. Right. So even if they were accomplished the goal I wanted, which is the CIA pushing the American agenda, it looks to me like they failed. Guess what, Tommy? If your job has failed 10 times, it's time to cut the funding. Like I don't know why that.
So the Arab Spring, the Arab Spring was a fucking. The Arab Spring was the Arab Spring was an example. The Ukraine takeover by Volodymyr Zelensky. These like Ukraine's government is created by CIA and US aid. Cool. The same thing happened in Egypt, and And then when we saw the censorship apparatus that was created via NGOs and training that occurred during COVID, all of that shit was set up so that other countries would so that people like Bolsonaro would not get reelected. It was set up to destroy people like Marine Le Pen from getting elected. It was set up to destroy, which was obviously a failure, to destroy Brexit. But again, what has Brexit actually accomplished? Not what the fuck they voted for. They just have a worse version. Over and over and over again, the CIA exerts their power via these institutions that they set up as a means of censoring people, changing
for the most part.
Okay, sometimes it fails, sometimes it's a success.
Right.
Ukraine
So
was
then
a massive success.
Exactly, but what I'm saying is, so you
Well,
brought up
we'll
too,
see about
Ukraine,
that.
airspace,
Another failure, right? That we don't know what successes and failure looks like because we don't know where the money laundering is occurring.
We can look at
like
the
I
money
said,
laundering.
the Associated Press.
Know where the failures are.
We can't. What we see, we have to investigate it.
Hold on. We can look at. We
have to investigate where the money laundering is.
If we look at Nigeria, we can look at all the funds they funded fishing.
Not all of it.
Fishing villages along the coast of Nigeria. You know who took those over? Boko Haram. Wow. Guess what? We don't need to keep sending money to the fucking fishing villages when Boko Haram controls them.
I agree, but what I'm talking about, so in Cuba, for example, in 2011, under the OTI, USAID funded a program of Zune Zeneo, which was a Twitter alternative. And in their own internal documents, which the Associated Press showed in 2014, they stated, quote, the plan was, quote, to get 100,000 users based on sports and hurricane content. And then, in ending the quote, because I'm paraphrasing because I want to read the whole thing, and then what they wanted to do was create smart mobs by giving them information to try and overthrow the Cuban government, right? Like, this is what you are funding with USAID. Yes, that's a failure, but we don't know where all of the money laundering occurs. And we don't, and defining success or failure is silly, because what their goal is often just stopping China or keeping a country poor. It's fucking neo-colonialism. And it's 1% of our budget, and we should fuck off with it.
It's weird that you're like confidently stating that USAID, right, and all the other shenanigans that the CIA gets through all its tentacles that like it has throughout the U.S. government and then like throughout the world. It's weird that you're saying that it's a failure without knowing like what the objectives were and what the mission was, right?
Sure. I can tell you why I could say that. It's pretty simple.
Oh, well, okay. I'll just finish this, but and I'd love to hear what you have to say. But like, yeah, it seems weird. Like, and this always is the problem with like judging intelligence agencies. We've run into these conversations before, right? Like, we'll say that the CIA has been effective, and we'll point to like a public failure, right? Complete collapse that the CIA botched, right? And we'll say, well, the CIA is a failure, but like, I have no insight of the CIA. I have no like, I don't have any sort of comprehensive list of the things that they get up to, or the NSA.
You don't even have a security clearance.
Yeah, I have nothing, right, to judge what they do, what their goals are, what the metrics are, or anything like that, right? All I can do as an outside observer is say, like, oh, they botched just one thing, and maybe spectacularly, right? But like, that doesn't tell you much of anything. So if USAID,
the successes are often more hidden than the failures.
Exactly,
because when a failure occurs, it makes it easier for us to see where they went like wrong,
smaller,
and
like they're funding smaller operations, right? And those operations maybe take years to come to fruition, and they don't have a result like, hey, like we've like overthrown in a uncooperative leader in some nation, right? Like it's a culmination of all these actions, and we don't have insight into that. But go ahead.
I understand that, Prime. And like, listen, I'm not arguing about whether or not, hey, they've had some successes, some failures. We can argue about Arab Spring. Arab Spring's obviously a failure. We could say the Ukraine looks like a success to me, right? Like, now there are some debates. You know, Zelensky admitted 54% of the funding of the Ukraine's gone not to anything that he has control over, which is kind of suspicious. But when we go sit here,
also all the dead people, don't forget that part.
Convenient time.
American imperialism, good, base colonialism, whatever. Anyway, listen. So when it comes to stuff that we want to look at, right? I can definitively say that, hey, whatever project the CIA and USAID was working on with Nigeria, where they funded fishing villages and fisheries, and then Boko Haram comes in and captures it, I can definitively say that's a failure. Whatever you were trying to do there didn't work. I can point to others.
Hold on. What if this was the goal? What if the goal was We don't care. So if we destabilize the region, what we don't want is China to come in with the Belt and Road Initiative and gain port access. What if destroying a country is better than
That
allowing
would be,
China to
that
have
would be a fair
control?
argument. That would be a fair
But
argument.
we wouldn't.
If,
but,
hold on.
So we wouldn't know.
If they had fucking ports, except it's not a port place. They're literal villages. They're literal villages with
Right.
like little huts and maybe
No,
one
no, but-
pier.
Right, but
That's
in the
not a
example,
port.
in the example I gave, in my
Yeah, but I don't
opening
care what you
statement,
say. I'll
I
give you
talked
a
about
real-world example.
right, but I gave an example of the 2021 memo that came out of Special Forces Command by Milley, who was in charge of the Joint Chief of Staff. Okay, and he gave a hypothetical about how we use and how we ought use resources. And one of the ways that they said is that they utilized USAID to set up a job fair program, and the entire region turned into riots and chaos because it was never designed to be a job fair program. It was actually designed to give temporary positions to workers that would then pull workers away from Chinese projects, and then they would utilize their resources in fomenting racial riots in the country to stop the Chinese. And yes, the Chinese in that example were going to build a port that didn't exist as part of a real estate development project. So if we were to take that hypothetical that he's writing and say that this is how we ought use it and this is how we do use it, and we assume that may have happened in the past, we're in the same position here.
So here's the problem with that. One, I don't know if that was effective or not. That specific example might have been an effective use of USA, and hopefully
It was a hypothetical.
Sure. Hopefully, in that case, Elon would have the security clearance to know these things, and then they could make an executive decision on which part's the gut. The one last thing here is, I would prefer if we just gutted USA completely, and then we just were upfront about what we were doing. We were saying, we're going to give these money to your fucking enemies, and we're going to destabilize their enemy, or we're going to do this. I think that would be better.
I want to examine what you just said, right? And maybe you didn't mean it this way, but you think that Elon Musk should have visibility into like all the operations that our intelligence agencies do? Like, you think that Elon Musk so Elon Musk and his cronies, right, can decide what's an efficient use of our intelligence agency dollars, and he'd be the one, or his small department, to oversee the CIA and NSA?
Well, sure. So here's my answer to that. I mean, I hate to be the guy who answers a question with a question, but if you want to be able to actually cut government bloat, right, then he's going to have at least some level of high clearance to where he can say, okay, this USA program, hold on, I know, just hear me out. You're not going to like it. USA program was effective in accomplishing this CIA office's goal. Now, listen, I get that Elon Musk, maybe a figure y'all don't like. Sure. I didn't like a lot of the Democrat figures either. It's part of how the government works. You have to have high enough clearance to be able to make a call and say, hey, this was effective, this wasn't. If you truly believe Doge is trying to cut government bloat.
I'm glad you brought this up. All right, and I want to kick it to Lactoid, right? Mostly Lactoid.
If you want
To answer the question directly, I'm fine with it. Yeah, Elon is Trump's employee at this point.
Lactoid. So is that you agree with that? You're saying that like Elon Musk, an unelected billionaire, a defense contractor who has his own priorities, direct financial priorities, that this individual
Gets government subsidies.
Gets government subsidies, right? Gets direct government contracts, gets all that, right? That this individual should have eyes on, like our intelligence agency dollars. Remember, this is coming from leftists who hates the imperial United States, right? The imperial reach, right? But you're saying that like he should have eyes on that and approval over the CIA.
Just to be clear, approval.
Oh, but approval.
Well, yeah,
No.
because of course it's important. This is what
Trump makes the decision.
Hold on, no, wait a minute. This is what Ali and I were talking about before, right? This
Let
is
me specify the question. Let me answer the question.
Okay. Well, I don't think you understand the question, right?
No, I know. I understand. You're saying. Do I think that Elon Musk, with all of his infinite criticisms that you have of him, do I think that it's a good idea for him to have access to all the different information that we have in government, and potentially even make recommendations of cutting all the different elements of government, because he's a defense contractor, he's this, he's that, etc. So I think this was on one of his a press conference that he had today. He was signing different executive orders, some of which I find to be very controversial, including the creation of a sovereign wealth fund. That's going to be very controversial.
This is the crypto one?
No,
Oh.
he wants to create a sovereign wealth fund and put companies in it. That's nationalization. That's going to be a very interesting conversation. But he stated that Elon Musk is part of an organization that has oversight from 2 congressmen and is also directly answerable to President Trump. If there's identified any kind of conflict of interest with the information, then Elon is not allowed to have access to that. And that is determined by the congressmen and the president. I think that's fine. It seems like he is operating as an employee who's being ordered by the president to go look into XYZ shit. And if the president and his staff and the congressmen say, actually, that's like a bad idea because there might be a conflict of interest here, then they don't let him.
Hold on. But before, friend, right? You saw what happened in December. You saw what happened with the budget, right? When Elon Musk sends a tweet out, when the United States, like, there's going to be a bipartisan agreement for a budget, right? Like, there was a plan, and as far as we could tell, it was going to go through, right? Congressmen, senators were on board. And then Elon Musk sends a single tweet. And he says, well, anyone who approves this awful budget or whatever the fuck, right? Whatever the tweet exactly said, right? Like, they'll be getting money, flooded from me, right?
Yeah.
Through the entire budgetary process.
So he's just AIPAC as a person. We've been doing this forever.
Yes, but AIPAC.
Yeah, and you're going to criticize it too. But
no. But AIPAC,
Citizens
right?
United.
Like, Jonathan Greenblatt, I think he's the head of AIPAC, whoever who was the head of AIPAC, right? Like, this individual doesn't have eyes on the intelligence agencies, right? He doesn't have that direct power. Like, congressmen are.
If he could get security clearance and was hired by a president, then maybe he could.
He literally said he's a defense contractor. He's been vetted. I mean, you can't do that.
It depends. I don't know that.
As long as he's saying they're going to cut.
It depends. Do I want him to have the power?
I don't care.
I don't know anything about him.
As long as so it doesn't
Someone's
matter.
gonna make the cuts.
Hold on 1 second.
Somebody's going to have to look at this information. Yes.
Yeah. It doesn't. But it doesn't have to be Elon. It doesn't have to be him.
Who should?
So it's like a personal vendetta that you have against the guy.
Prime, you should pick the person to go through.
Are elected officials, people who are actually
he is overseen by elected officials.
He's overseen by elected officials, and he's a defense contractor who's been vetted more than most government officials. You can't get around this. He's been investigated more than most government officials.
Prime. He is overseen by
Prime. You're wrong on this one.
Shut up.
Glasses off.
Shut up. Thank you. So answering that question, absolutely. The people we've elected, there's an idea, right? We have oversight committees that do just that. The people who
do they oversee?
Who are actual employees of the government who draw a paycheck and who have to follow the rules within of our federal government, not an outside force, and not a person with massive conflicts of interest, right?
Elon has to follow the rules. They've already said if they identify conflict of interest,
what rules?
The rules is that Doge is overseen by a congressional oversight committee and the president. They determine like what Doge can do.
And so that oversight committee that effectively would be his puppet. The moment he implies that he's going to flood their races with money, right? These individuals who
Trump can do the same thing.
Think he's ever threatened.
Trump can do the same thing.
Primary.
Also,
the members of Congress that are overseeing.
Also, hold on.
If he does, that could be a concern.
Hold on to me. I won't hold on. I won't hold on. It won't happen. I'm not going to hold on. I'm going to keep fucking talking. Thank you. Right. So no, he literally. Yes, I'm not sure if he specifically attacked those specific congressmen, but he's flexed his power. Just months ago, 2 months ago, we watched this happen,
and then now you're the president.
It won't happen again. Well, certainly not.
Okay,
right?
hold on. A couple things. It's also the president, first of all. So Trump has to approve what Elon can do, and so you can't primary the president at this point. And if you're going to say that, well, what if he's going to threaten to primary the congressmen? Like, yeah, if he does that, that's going to look bad. Exactly. And hold on. I wouldn't be in favor of that. But remember, there's also this guard at the gate, which is the president, which is where this authority is coming from. He's working as an employee of the president. He's an assistant for Trump
Yes.
on this.
He's the vice
That's
president.
hold
Just
on,
say
that's not-
it.
So
He's not
I
the vice
see.
president.
And we'll go to Grid and we'll
The
go to
President
Scott
has
later
many
on.
different
We'll go-
assistants.
Hold on, we'll go to Grid and Scott. Hold on. But Lactoid, you know this, right? I shouldn't have to tell you this. President Trump does not personally oversee all the work of every single person.
His office
under him.
does.
There is a reason why he hires these individuals, right? Right. Well, any
Biden hasn't been
any
cognizant the
manager,
whole time he was in
period,
office.
hires individuals. They hired them for their particular judgment, right? And them to execute a job. But
Would you have a problem, Prague, if it was somebody
but
else other than Elon in charge of Doge?
especially, no, I wouldn't want anyone. I don't want the department to exist at all.
He doesn't
so
want
fuck
Doge,
that, right?
yeah. so-
But anyway, yeah. So
But hypothetically, if
hold
you
on.
did want Doge,
no,
would
I
you want,
don't want. There's no hypothetical where I do want that. But anyway, so
You hate efficiency?
for this individual, fuck, what was I about to say? Yeah. This individual has a certain level of power. That's why it matters who we nominate, right? That's why we have a nomination process. It isn't simply that, okay, well, the president was elected, right? So like President Biden is in, and well, he was elected and he has a vision. And so because he has that vision, it really doesn't matter which nominee heads these departments. Congress has oversight over these things, and for a reason, right? Like if this person is somehow objectionable, in certain way, it gets shot down. We want that to happen. We want to have that push and pull. We don't have that with Elon, right? We don't have this.
Let me respond. Elon is again, unlike other departments, which yes, I know are executive agencies and executive departments. This is different, right? Doge is a direct extension of President Trump. Like President Trump or his office, because I agree that the president's office usually has a lot to do with the day-to-day dealings and determining things like conflict of interest and determining all these different things. I mean, like I said, there's some news coming out that Biden, people noticed some deficiencies within the first year. But his office was, competent. They always are. And they were able to get, they were able to mask it for as long as they were able to do. And they're able to get the shit done the president has to do. Just because President Trump, which I'm sure he probably has some in like a direct say in exactly what Elon's doing. I mean, he meets with him. Elon went to Mar-a-Lago and hangs out with him all the fucking time. I'm sure they have these kind of conversations. But either President Trump or his staff is like setting the guardrails for what Elon can do, because Elon is working for Trump, right? And also has oversight from Congress as well. And so when you have an employee who has oversight from Congress and is also oversight and taking orders from Trump, because Elon does not have unilateral authority to do anything, right? There's a reason why they had to get Trump involved in order to have access to the information, why they had to get Trump involved when it comes to making any of these cutting decisions.
Power now.
So if you're saying the president has the ability to agree to have his employees do things, yes, this is the case. Now,
so
you just don't like this particular employee.
One last question.
Sure.
Move on. On that note, right? One last question, and then I'll move on to Grid and Scott, right? So the dream comes true, right? Everyone across the land is celebrating AOC's rise to the presidency. She is backed by George Soros, right? Like a multi-billionaire puts money on campaign. Oh, I don't know why AOC would take that money, but like fair enough. But AOC, let's say, takes this billionaire money, right? So now that she's in office, she returns the favor from the multi-billionaire who funded her campaign, almost like practically put her in office himself, right? You would say, you're fine with putting this individual within a powerful agency, right? That oversees parts of the government, right?
If George Soros,
as long as it cuts or whatever the fuck, right?
If George Soros was a direct employee of AOC and had oversight from Congress and was going into agencies and looking for cutting certain things, sure.
And security clearance. He would have to have security clearance.
And security clearance. And security
clearance.
clearance.
To get security clearance.
I think MAGA will
which is what Elon Musk already has.
You'd lose your mind.
MAGA absolutely cheers.
May I be losing my mind because AOC was elected, not because of this. Anything AOC would do, I'd be losing my mind. But for policy reasons, okay?
We're gonna
be reasonable.
Absolutely.
That is reasonable.
I think the conservatives are cheering this moment, right?
Not
Think it's so
reasonable, honest.
great. It's amazing for them, but we understand as happens all the time with conservatives and the hypocrisy, right? Like for Lactoid, I'll give him that. Lactoid tends to be consistent on this, so I'm excluding you from this, Lactoid, right?
Thank you.
Yes, Scott. Yes, we love
Unlike
you too.
Scott,
We love
who
you
was
too,
never
Scott.
consistent.
Scott,
Thank you, Prime.
Scott.
I think
No,
all the conservatives
Scott,
are
hold on.
consistent
No,
here.
Scott, we all love you. In case we haven't, no, we haven't given him enough attention yet. Scott, we love you. Yes. But conservatives in general, the conservative movement, with its endless hypocrisy, yes, they say this makes sense. We should put a billionaire who the president owes a massive favor because he put $250 million into his campaign. We should empower him. Yes, it's only natural, right? These people, this MAGA movement was talked about the swamp, right? Which during the first campaign couldn't get enough of it. Let's get rid of the swamp. What does the swamp look like? This is literally the swamp. This is the swampiest fucking thing, right?
What do you mean?
And
It's just like
This is
and as
anti-swamp.
always, and as
No,
always, the conservative movement, when actually faced with like following its principles or exercising power, will always choose exercising power.
Well, hold on,
every
Brian. That's
single
not what's
time.
happening in this
And
conservative
then let's
movement
go
at
to,
all.
Yeah.
That's not what's happening at all.
Let's-
Like,
before that, let's before that, let's go to Grid because he's been waiting.
I was trying to be. I did try and be polite. I did interrupt you a few times there, Prime. But I think it's. I just think you don't like Elon, man. Which I personally don't like Elon either. However, the man has a higher security clearance than most politicians. Do you not understand that? Like a lot of politicians can't even get a security clearance.
This is work with
Explain how that's
SpaceX.
a good thing.
That's not a good thing. Hold on. Did you know?
Wait, hold on. That's not a good thing?
Elon Musk had a lower.
Wait, it's a good thing that some random guy has more clearance than most politicians.
random
He's
guy.
not some random guy. He's a defense contractor.
Our intelligence.
He's been
agencies have
investigated.
questions
Do you
about
not understand how
our
this
intel-
works?
No, but don't listen. Our intelligence agencies have.
I don't need to listen. I know how it works. I understand security clearances.
No, you don't. Because Elon Musk, like our intelligence agencies have
Bullshit. I'm calling bullshit. I don't care what else you say. It's all bullshit because there's a very specific way security clearances work.
Complete my sentence.
You can keep saying words, but they don't mean anything because security clearances have a very specific meaning.
You were going to tell me what I was going to say.
Yeah, it's Orange Man bad, Elon bad, everybody bad.
You don't know what the fuck. Okay, great. You have no idea what the fuck I'm going to say.
So you guys can't like.
So shut up for a second, and I'll complete my words, right? And then you can respond to my words. Okay. So anyway, intelligence agencies have had questions about Elon Musk for years, right? Elon Musk has had a lower clearance than his SpaceX employees. That Elon Musk could technically not be within meetings, right? On SpaceX, on certain projects, because he wasn't allowed, because he was not able to get that higher level of clearance.
Weed.
Like because our intelligence actually did an assessment, right? A real assessment, not what's happening now when Trump has simply demanded this individual gets this clearance, right? Trump simply gives it to him. That doesn't mean that he necessarily is a trustworthy individual, that he isn't compromised at all, right? This is simply an exercise of Trump's will. We've seen that throughout the nomination process. That we've had cursory investigations into these individuals. But Pete Hegseth, like many of his acquaintances, have not been questioned. His was it his sister or his ex-wife or whatever wasn't questioned, even when they put themselves up. They contacted the FBI. I'm willing to give a statement about this individual. They weren't questioned. There has been a degradation in the testing. I'm not sure the word I want to use here, right? But the investigation into these individuals. These are rubber stamps, right? So just because he has a clearance now absolutely does not mean that he's a trustworthy individual. That he doesn't have dangerous conflicts of vision
But you agree? All right. So just real quick, and then I'll be done.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want just to be clear. Like I know you don't like Doge. All right. My argument is, and this is my argument, so I don't want to get called a hypocrisy, whatever, is that whoever is in charge of Doge, whether it's Elon Musk, Bob Saget, Santa Claus, I don't give a shit. Whoever is in charge of Doge is going to need high enough clearance to be able to see, hey, CIA funded this bullshit program. This was the result. It didn't work or it did work. Or A, this was not a CIA program. This worked, didn't work. I'm arguing that whoever's in charge should have that security clearance to be able to see A to D. Now, I know you don't like Doge. Do you agree that if Doge is supposed to work the way it should, the person at the top has to have at least a high enough level security clearance to be able to make those command decisions?
No, even within Gibbs, within what you laid out, actually you don't. Right? You can say that that this individual has general oversight look into the budget, right? That they had a look that certain Senate committees have into the budget. But maybe they don't have a deep understanding of each individual operation. Why? There's no reason to, right? There's no reason to give all that power to this individual, this unelected individual, right? Trump has that power, and sure,
you elect the CIA director.
That's
what.
Sorry, what?
Gibbs, were you done? Because
the head of the
wasn't
CIA.
done, but okay.
The CIA director is put in place by the president. He's not elected.
Right. Okay. So they're not
president.
elected. Right. Right.
Yeah,
so
but the CIA director, he has a view.
Do you know
into the
why? Do
CIA,
you know why
not
Elon
the
didn't
entire
have the
government,
security clearance?
right? So the person who has
It's because Biden pulled it
view of the entire government
because he didn't
would be
like
the
that he
president.
bought Twitter.
He has that view. So no, I would not give that. Even with
That's why Elon didn't have a security clearance.
Not in
Your problem with
and
Tulsi
it doesn't
Gabbard?
matter that Elon happens to be the person in charge. I mean, it does matter because he's a particularly a vile individual. And
So then how do you expect
He's a
Doge to
vile individual?
What
did he do that was vile?
But even if it was someone else,
What's so vile about Elon Musk?
that
I mean, I don't like the guy, but
other people.
I have a
wanna-
whole
I wanna hear
list.
what Prime
That's
says.
a
Yeah,
long
let's just say it's not
discussion.
Elon.
I
Well,
love
if
to
it's
have
somebody
with you.
else.
I have a whole list of
So
reasons I have a problem with Elon.
I have to correct you, Prime.
Pro-Israel.
Prime.
But even though someone
I'm
else-
sorry. I
no,
let
it has-
Gibbs
no,
ask
it-
the
no,
question,
hold
but
on.
I got to correct
Back to
you.
it. It's not
That's
about
not
being
part.
cool.
That's not part of it. 'Cause
I
he's
have to
Israel.
correct you. Biden- I just in the interest of accuracy, Biden is the one that revoked Musk.
I actually don't appreciate
security
you
clearance.
flattening my opinions just to, hey, has a problem with Israel. I actually have many complex
We
opinions.
asked you. We asked you. You called him a vile individual.
Forget
No,
the
yes,
Israel. I don't
I
care.
have many
What
violent
about
individuals for many
somebody else?
reasons.
What
Right?
about somebody
Elon
else?
Musk
Prime?
is my problem with Elon Musk does not have nothing to do with Israel at all. I
Okay.
actually
What
didn't
are
know
some of the problems then?
What? No.
No, hold on. Scott will probably say what I'm going to say, but the only reason that Elon didn't have his security clearance is because Biden was pissed and revoked
I
it.
don't think an individual, even one that's cutting parts of our government, needs to have that deep of operational knowledge into everything.
So then, how are they going to know that it's actually doing? So my one question is,
Okay,
how
hold
are
on.
they going to know?
Hold on,
if
I've been
they
waiting.
don't know what the beginning is to the end. That's what I want to know.
I'll answer that in mine, right? So we're getting a little heated here. So let me pull it back a little bit. So Admiral Gibbs, I totally understand your position, which is, how is it that someone can effectively cut government programs if they don't know what the government programs are doing? If they don't actually know what, someone has to have the ability to understand what the stated goal of the program is and judge its effectiveness to determine whether or not that money is being utilized in an effective way. If I think that money is going, like you said, to some fishing village, and I don't actually understand that this is a secret operation to stop the Chinese in that regard. I'm not saying that this is good or bad. I'm just saying from a purely descriptive position, how am I supposed to know whether or not I ought cut that program when I don't realize that the goal was actually to stop the Chinese, not to fund some fucking fishing village. So I'm looking at $200,000 as some fishing village as a waste of money when really $200,000 stopped the Chinese from getting $1 billion project done. All of a sudden, that's money well spent. I understand your position there. There's a few problems here. So first and foremost, let's talk about security clearance. I have top secret security clearance. I'm a fucking ANCAP streamer, and I have top secret security clearance that I got reissued from my secret security clearance when I was in the Army, when I was working for the post enumeration survey for the census, because I was quality control for quality control. I needed that access because I needed to look in every single solitary American's all of their census data, including pictures of their home, whenever I wanted on a laptop at the touch of a button. And I needed to be trusted that I wouldn't fucking do crazy shit with that information, because I could just be like, oh, I want to know where Justin Timberlake lives, and I could go look that up, know where he lives, know all of his information immediately. That being said, intelligence agencies don't work like they do in the movies, where there's secret and there's secret and then there's top secret, right? Secret and top secret are really small security clearances. When you're talking about intelligence agencies, you're talking about secret and top secret and then interim intelligence, right? Which is like you're in the process of approval, or you're in the process of like leaving your job or something, so you get a different type of security clearance. And then you have two other types of security clearances, which are sensitive compartmented information, and then you have special access programs. Now, with sensitive compartmental information, you have access to a domain of intelligence at the highest level, right? So you're a drone pilot and you like bomb people in the Middle East. Okay. You are aware of things that are like, you are aware of every detail that is necessary for that job, which is at the highest levels of government. But you don't have access to any other type of shit that's going on in your department or going on in intelligence, et cetera. Special access programs, which is you'll often hear called PrivAC or privileged access, right, are people that are in charge of agencies, right? So if you're in charge of, like, let's say a section of the CIA or something, you're part of a special access program. You have privileged access because you need to be able to manage everybody. Here's the problem. And I love how people really don't trust Elon Musk, and I love how people are showcasing all of the problems with this, is that you're kind of already made my argument for me why USAID needs to fucking go. We have a close to $50 billion funded program that the CIA uses to topple regimes, to destroy countries, to destroy democracy, to censor people, to ensure that the right people get elected, even in countries that we're presumed allies with, because they don't want the right-wing populist candidate to win, is the current kind of push from the CIA, et cetera. And we recognize that one individual can't actually oversee these things, that it would be too dangerous to give these people all of this information. We've had Congress that has been, that we have committees on Congress, congressional oversight committees. And what did they do? They watched James Clapper go before them and say that the NSA does not wittingly or in any way, shape, or form utilize people to collect people's data en masse. And then they all knew that he was fucking lying, that the NSA was doing that. Edward Snowden proved that that was a lie. And all that he got, instead of going to jail, was he got a permanent gig at CNN as an intelligence correspondent. He got fucking money from the very same institutions that are funded by USAID. Look it up. Media organizations in America, your tax dollars fund state media. That is part of what they do, is they fund our own media programs so that they can have access to intelligence agencies, so that the intelligence agencies can tell you, the American people, what you ought to think, because you don't have a right to all of the sensitive information. The very reason that you don't trust Elon Musk, or the very reason somebody else wouldn't trust George Soros if he was in charge when AOC is elected, is the very fucking reason why these programs should not fucking exist. We should not be stealing tens of billions of dollars of Americans' hardworking taxpayer money to overthrow fucking regimes and to support democratic institutions in other countries that, even when they're successful like they are in Ukraine, lead to fucking more wars that we then fund. It is money laundering. It is how people like Black and Vetch get more money so that they can support more wars, so that more people can be bombed and die. It's fucking atrocious that any of this occurs. And the very last small point that I'll make is, I don't know why you think AOC wouldn't take billionaire money, because she took money from Tom Steyer, and 38% of her campaign that was funded in 2018 was from PAC money, much of which is dark money.
Damn, Scott.
Even the good ones are all corrupt.
Okay, yep, get money out of politics. So, like,
no one's demonstrated why like Musk is trustworthy or like why they're okay with
But it
like,
shouldn't
the
have-
program being run the way it is.
But the problem is, like, it should have to rest on Musk in the first place. The fact that
I know.
it could be, yeah, no, I hear you.
We
But
should have
they're
gotten
rooting,
the Doge in the first
but they're
place.
rooting and they're kind of championing and like caping, which is like I understand that like it's your team that's in charge right now. You're hoping for the best. I'm saying like you hope for the best, you pray for the best, but you expect the worst. And it seems like you're missing that part of the equation. Is that like you're kind of blind like to any skepticism of like the process
hold on,
that's
that's not
being taken, or
true.
like the person. Well, I'm not talking about you, Gibbs. You've been skeptical. I'm more talking like Lactoid. I want to understand his, because like me and him have argued about the principled stance. And if you're a libertarian, right? Like I understand that this seems like, okay, this person's taking away like that they're taking away power from the president. But once again, all like the average person sees is like, oh, this billionaire, everyone learned the word oligarchy this year. So like all of a sudden it's like, oh, the billionaire is taking over. The democracy that we had has become an oligarchy, right? And like, yeah, why are so many people putting like trust in this person that we're saying, like, to the point where you're saying he has no power? But I would argue that at this point the president's right hand man, like right next to him all day, every day, at every event, at every like showing.
Dude,
what that
Dude,
he has
billionaires
power.
already have power. The billionaires already
God.
run our fucking
Yes,
government.
Yes,
the
we
concept
know.
that
I'm asking
Elon Musk,
Lactoid why he trusts this one particularly and is okay
dude,
with
you
it
keep
and sticking for this
rehashing the
particular-
same fucking argument
because
this
no one's
entire
answering
panel.
The fucking question. You're just getting angry. and
We've
saying we
answered
don't
it like
trust them, but
20
then we do
different
trust
fucking
them.
times.
You've been yelling. I don't know. Talking to
Lactoid
a
has,
little bit
I
calmer.
have, Admiral Gibbs has, Grid has,
Yeah, but you're
over and over
scary.
and over
Well,
again.
You're scary when you do it.
I'll say this. In addition to everything I've said, I think that Elon
me with
Musk has
kindness.
proven himself through his companies to have an eye for efficiency. SpaceX.
Can you elaborate on that? What?
I will. I will. Look at the cost of space flight in terms of launching shit per pound into space before SpaceX and following SpaceX. SpaceX specifically has led the way. Even critics of Elon will say,
Because there's
yeah,
scientists who are good at doing
SpaceX.
science.
Elon Musk specifically led SpaceX
What?
into being what it is, which is a incredibly efficient driver of innovation in spaceflight. Yes,
He had
Look-
money.
look-
he
I-
funded it.
look-
Yes, he
look-
funded it.
that's
Correct.
correct.
he also
funded it.
he also runs it administratively.
Okay, so let's say we grant that. What else
I
aside from
don't
that?
grant that.
What else?
I will.
Sure,
Okay,
sure. So you've got a
Okay.
history there of one of his major companies that gives him almost all of his security clearance that is directly involved with his efficiency. We also have him being an innovator in the field of electric cars. This
Okay, well,
wasn't.
pause,
This wasn't.
pause. I wanna
Hold
pause,
on.
I wanna pause, I
We're
wanna
not going to
pause.
pause yet. You can pause after finish the sentence real quick. Like this is. I understand that you can say it's like some mistakes are made in Tesla. Before Tesla, electric cars weren't really a conversation in the U.S.
Okay, all right, for sure. Okay, even I grant that. Okay, so
Kia didn't exist?
when did Elon announce that full self-driving autonomous cars were going? What was the timeline? Do you recall?
I know he's messed up the timeline. He
2012,
he overstates
How many
timelines.
times?
I don't know.
Okay,
Well, I'm guessing many.
Is
He's
that
done
your
the same thing
best
with,
argument? Is
Mars
that
as
he
well.
overstated a timeline?
he's
He-
overstated.
he's-
mo-
he's-
mo-
like,
mo-
he-
mo-
well,
mo- mo- mo-
well,
mo-
this
mo-
is part of the
mo-
Is that
problem.
your best
Should any
argument?
good business owner
Right.
like
He's
that-
over-
There's
he's
way better
over-optimistic.
arguments against Elon.
Okay,
He's not a good
when
business owner.
when did
He's
Elon
over-optimistic.
project?
I know, but
when-
Lactoid's argument
when-
is like, would any good business owner or like millionaire, like, would any millionaire would be like should be able to run the department of government efficiency, like,
Potentially, because what does that communicate when you have these expectations for your
that
workers?
they made money.
What
That's it.
what you're
They
communicating
made
is my expectations for you, my employees, is that you get this done on a strict timetable. Does he set goals for his employees that are infeasible sometimes? For sure. But yes, many times.
What
But
was his
empirically
timeline for
speaking-
Mars?
hold on.
What's his
Can
timeline
I,
for Mars?
Lactoid, can I speak to that for just one
I
second?
don't
Dude,
recall.
will you just
I don't
stop
recall
trying
any of
to
the-
subvert?
Lactoid,
I don't recall any of the
Can I-
specific years that you're going to point out. What I'm going to say
Lactoid,
is that I do
one
know
thing,
for a fact that SpaceX
2024.
specifically, when it comes to cost efficiency, has been a absolute industry leader. When it comes to electric cars, Tesla's been an absolute leader. And so then Elon gets into this Doge shit, and he starts immediately making great recommendations for all the reasons that Scott said. if someone's looking at USAID and saying this is kind of a bad idea, that demonstrates good judgment.
Lactoid,
So
if I may, Lactoid, just one thing. So I actually, the reason that Elon made those bold claims for Tesla was not to actually ever deliver the car on time. It was to attract investors and keep that interest up. Even when he missed the
That's
date,
just a scam.
even when he missed the date, it kept the interest up. And that's
by a
That's what
decade.
scammers do. That's what
I'm
scammers
sorry?
Decade?
The biggest criticism I have of him is that video game faking shit. That's
Yeah,
pretty-
it was
Yeah,
pretty bad.
I don't know the video game thing,
Yeah.
but
It's pretty bad.
I mean,
No, but
hold on. So I actually
I'm sorry.
had some.
I'm the only Path of Exile player here. I can confirm he faked that. shit.
Theranos also kept interest up for investors, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
no,
if you've got to keep the interest up, and
grid, excuse me.
yeah, that I mean, he did that specifically, my opinion, to keep interest up and from investors. I don't know a
Like Theranos,
single
like
corporate
Theranos.
guy that
That's not
doesn't
my
do
opinion, by
the
the way.
same thing in one format or the other. I mean, they just do. They will make claims based on what they think will happen to bring in investor money. That's
So,
what they
so-
do. But to actually achieve it is exceedingly special.
But he hasn't achieved it. That's the point.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Does the Cybertruck not exist?
You guys weren't wondering what my problem
Does the
is.
Cybertruck not exist?
I can
Just
do it
answer
for- I
just
can-
answer the question. Does the Cybertruck exist or not?
Yeah,
Cybertruck
you know what I
piece of shit,
mean? Hold
for
on.
the
I'm
record.
just putting a
Piece of
little-
shit.
I mean, I know you're going to spurg out again, but please
Hold on,
just
hold on,
answer the
shit, don't worry.
question. Does the Cybertruck
Hold on,
exist or
hold on,
not?
Hold on, hold on,
Wise
hold on.
white dragon.
Shut the
activate.
fuck up. Hold on. I'm talking. Thank you.
Oh,
Right,
Cybertruck
got
piece of
it.
shit, by the way.
So, any which way.
It is a piece of shit.
Right?
I don't like it.
So I'm going to distill down, because this is a very long conversation, and I can talk for, I think, 2 hours about this, about Elon Musk and what a fucking fraud he is, and that's the focus. He's a fucking fraud. In terms of, sorry, what are you saying to me?
This is just a cost of launching a low Earth orbit by time.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. We'll have to do that later. He's a fraud. I think many people understand here. He didn't actually invent Tesla, to be very clear, right? He didn't invent it. A pair of engineers created Tesla. He came in afterwards, bought the company, pushed them out, and then also pretended he was the founder. He put that within as a fraudulent individual. He put that into the corporate, the business news cycle, right? And people were just saying, "Oh, I guess he's the founder of Tesla." He's not the founder of Tesla. All the innovations.
Didn't you just buy
came
it
from those-
basically for the name?
Uh,
Wasn't it even like they hadn't even sold a single electric car? when he
Part of
purchased
the
Yeah.
agreement was that he was listed as a founder because of how much he did for that company.
He
Yeah.
didn't. He done well. What he's done is market, right? So the thing that I get. from
No,
him,
he
he's a
did way more
fantastic
than
marketer.
that, Prime.
He is. There's a reason why, he.
It was
and
not
Trump
just
get
marketing.
along.
And he also
Right,
secured
Prime,
Obama bucks for it. That was
I
one
don't
thing.
I don't
That's
understand
the
why
thing
you
get to. Hold on.
you want to
We're
rewrite
gonna-
history this
From the
way.
government, yeah.
Yes, from the government. Yes, these individuals are.
What better
right,
person to be in
yeah.
charge of government
Well,
efficiency?
hold on. Actually, Prime, if we want to be
there's
accurate,
hypocrisy
So-
because the way he did that was straight fraud.
okay. So can I address the
no,
Tesla early years of
Yes,
Tesla
fraud,
thing?
fraud.
Straight
We'll go
fraud.
through-
How
I-
did he commit fraud
hold
against
on, hold on.
Tesla?
I know about this because I was involved a little
because
bit.
He had a business relationship that he didn't have, right, to secure funding, and then he used that private funding. Then he used that to get government funding as well. But we can go through that some other time, right?
Well, no, he sold PayPal
So I'm just trying to give you
to buy
quick
Tesla,
rundown because this is a long conversation, right? So he
You're talking about the SEC?
all the innovation that's come out of Tesla has come from those original engineers, right?
No,
They
the
asked
original
him
two
for
engineers
the
are gone,
Tesla
long
Roadster.
gone.
Hey, when are you gonna Elon? When are you gonna provide the Tesla Roadster? I believe it was 10 or 11 years ago. He promised his Tesla Roadster, right? And he took pre-order money.
No,
for the
10,
Tesla
no,
Roadster,
Down
that's
payment.
that's an
yeah,
incorrect.
down payment, $250,000 for this Tesla Roadster. He got that from a certain number of
Hold on,
individuals,
hold
right?
on,
And
hold
he
on. This is a rewriting of history here.
25 million.
The
or I
original
forget how many,
Tesla Roadster
individuals
was
but, like, this
funded by
$1
Al
million
Gore,
man, right?
built in
Workers
Europe.
Promise literally has never delivered on it. People can't even get their money back. from this. This was a zero-cost loan, effectively, from his customers, right, for a product that he doesn't plan to deliver, and he can't deliver because he's lied on all his promises, right? If you go down, and I would be happy, Blackwood, you and me, right, to sit down and watch his presentations where he makes promises as to what is coming and what he can't deliver, and I can tell you all the lies, the established lies that he's told many times before, right? And the ones that he surely, right, for reasons I can provide later on, he surely cannot provide. I have done a deep dive into Elon Musk, and I've seen
But Tesla,
endless amount of lies.
Tesla didn't start out that
Done,
way. That's
right?
not how
He's
Tesla
wants to
started.
just
And you can prove that he is a specific lie on his part,
Sure,
as opposed to
I
missing,
will
as
absolutely do
opposed
that. Yes,
as
yes.
opposed to
and-
to just simply missing production targets.
No, we'll sit down and we'll discuss it.
That he
can't-
knew that he
Yes,
couldn't
that he
provide
knew.
X,
He
Y, Z.
absolutely knew that he's lied, and he's lied many times. But we'll go. through
I'll
that.
look at your sources.
We love to. We'll sit down together and we'll have. This
And when you're all
conversation
done, you will
because-
prove that Elon Musk is like every other fucking bureaucrat, politician, and
So
billionaire.
he's a disgusting individual.
Which is why we should get you rid of U.S. aid.
Yes, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. I don't know why you. I don't care. I don't care about that. But anyway, so that's my issue.
If we put Mother Teresa in charge of Doge, would you be in favor of it then?
Why would I? I've already told you. Like, I'm not in favor of this agency at all. Like, why would you think that? No.
Why aren't you? Why? Just generally speaking,
as well.
Okay. Leaving aside, I also saw the Christopher Hitchens documentary. Leaving aside like the specifics, like I'm looking for some kind of like perfect person. Okay, if you had like this fucking choir boy, okay, why would you not want this person looking into government bloat?
Why would I not want a? I think we already have. I guess my problem is that we already have systems to do that, right? We have like inspector generals.
Obviously, not enough because we have USAID.
Hold on, but USAID isn't government bloat. That part I've never agreed to. It's not government bloat, right? I don't like what lots of things it gets up to. I can agree with Scott with lots of things it's gotten up to, but it's not a government bloat, right?
Wouldn't you want somebody to investigate that and potentially cut it?
No, I don't.
You're correct. It's not government bloat. It's fraud.
Yeah.
It's our government.
Well, they should look into fraud, right?
They
should look into fraud.
Fraud, right? Like it is a tool of the State Department of statecraft, to either help honestly with certain projects that might require some funding, right? Or to fund covert operations. Either way, like it's not fraud, it's not waste. It's doing what it's supposed to be doing. So I don't look at it in that way. Now,
Every time, Ron, every time.
If it says, if they say, hey, if they say, for example, hey, we're funding irrigation efforts in Afghanistan in, let's say, the 2010s to help farmers, maintain themselves. But what you don't realize is that they're not telling you that the United States Institute for Peace is working alongside the Taliban, and that the USAID is specifically utilizing irrigation systems with the Taliban to make sure that the trade of heroin is being moved massively. And the American public is being told that we're helping farmers and irrigation systems, but really what we're doing is we're helping the Taliban fund heroin.
Because I don't care about that, right?
How is that not fraud?
Hold on, listen, hold on. I'm literally about to explain that when we're dealing with intelligence agencies do covert operations all the time, right? Ones that we hear about, ones we don't hear about, right? The fact that an agency in and of itself is using certain funds for a covert operation, right? In the supposed interest of the American people, quote unquote, right? Like that in itself doesn't bother me, right? Now the actually specifics of the operation might bother me, and I can find agreement with you there. But the very fact that yes, a covert agency is doing covert things doesn't bother me in and of itself. I don't.
But it's not the CIA. But this is the problem. Is that we're not talking about a budget that was given to the CIA. Okay, under the Ronald Reagan administration,
ladies and gentlemen, I have been muted by the host
in the eyes of the public, the CIA,
because
the CIA had gotten a massively bad rep from the American public and from the world abroad, because we were engaged in regime change wars and assassinating, public elected officials, etc. And so what we have now is a fraud to the American public, where most people hear the term U.S. aid and they think it's foreign aid, which is what they was set up to do, and then it is sold to us as if we're helping people with irrigation systems and schools and all these other things. That is fraud. You're not talking about money given to. Hold on. You're not talking. No, but you're not talking about money that is given to the CIA, and then we're like, hey, we're not allowed to know what that money is doing. You're talking about money that is given to the U.S. aid.
Ask me what my opinion was, and I already given it to you. I've already answered the question. Right?
So there's no such thing as money laundering and fraud, so long as the government funnels that money to the CIA to do covert operations. So if we have a giant infrastructure bill and it's like $2 billion, and $1.8 billion actually goes to the CIA, and it's utilized to topple regimes in other places, you're like, well, maybe I don't like what the CIA did there, but that's not fraud. We voted for 1.8. We voted for a $2 trillion infrastructure bill, but 1.8 went to the CIA.
That doesn't mean Sorry,
yeah, just real quick. Let me ask you this. This maybe. I just want to bridge a gap.
Stepping on my toes, Admiral Gibbs.
I'm sorry.
He's not answering the question.
Yeah, that's fine. I think this is going to be the worst one for him to answer. Right? So, Prime, you said the words, I think, where it's working as intended. So let me just give you a hypothetical, and I want you to tell me if you would still agree it's working as intended, okay? So, say Gibbs is now head of the Doge. I'm head of Doge.
I don't care.
Okay, sure, right. You don't like Doge. But I investigate a USAID program, and I see that it's funding Colombians food. Like, right? Cool. Whatever. And then it turns out that it's actually a CIA front to bring cocaine to the United States, turn it into crack, and sell it to minority communities. Now, that is the stated goal of this organization. Would you, of this thing on in the CIA memo, would you agree that that is not working as intended for USAID or the American populace? It needs to be cut.
Here's the stated goal.
Because
That's what they were doing.
Yeah,
that's what they're saying they're doing, is to sell the crack here in America to minorities.
I'm putting the focus here, right? I'm putting the focus on our politicians. I'm saying that if that's the goal of our politicians, then it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, right? That's an agency that is doing something I don't like, right? Lots of agencies do things that I don't like. But
they're lying to you about it.
Yeah,
they lied to us about it.
U.S. government lies.
So it's fraud.
Agreed. Whatever.
Yeah,
so you agree that it's fraud?
But I don't. Sorry. Not if. It would be. I don't know. I don't know the best way.
Gibbs said that it was a stated goal, which means they're saying out loud that that's what
no.
they're doing.
Within
so
the memo.
No. That's a stated goal within internal memos. That's not what's happening.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They said their goal is to
USAID
feed
funded the
Colombians.
Contras. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Prime?
Yes, I know that. Of course, I know that. Why wouldn't I know that? Why would you?
Wouldn't that be fraud?
If only we had a Doge in place at the time that would have investigated USAID giving money to Contras,
because they wouldn't have done that. Because hold on, Scott,
although they were anti-communist,
Scott for a long time has told us, right, has regaled us over long periods of time, over big rants about how all these tech oligarchs, right, are tools of the intelligence agencies, how they've gotten money from the intelligence agency, right? All the big ones, right? All the ones lined up behind Trump during inauguration, every single one of them has our defense contractors have gotten intelligence money, right? Well, here's what I think, like I said before, it actually matters who's running these things. Those individuals who gets those defense contract money, right, and who are doing work for intelligence agencies directly, no, I don't think they would have actually zeroed out that, right? If
Elon has, he suggested cutting USAID.
Yeah, I think Elon Musk, right, to ensure USAID is something that Donald Trump has a problem with, right? But if Donald Trump doesn't have a specific
Elon has a problem with it.
If Donald Trump, again, I repeat what I said, because hold on, this is what you were saying previously, right? Well, Donald Trump has the final say, correct?
Yes, correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So the only targets that you can actually effectively get rid of are the ones that, according to your logic, right, are the ones that President Trump approves of.
Great.
Correct?
What's the problem?
Okay.
Yeah. Then what's the problem? If you're saying you can't have your cake and you cannot have your can't have your cake and eat it too. If what I'm setting is President Trump, vets everything and approves of everything. Great. then it doesn't matter who's doing it, because ultimately it's up to Trump. Like, so who cares? Who cares if it's Elon? But if Elon does have some say in it, like it seems like you're concerned about because you don't want Elon to be involved in it, then
your contention, just what you just asked me was, hey, like during the Iran-Contra scandal, if Elon Musk or Elon Musk and Doge were in charge, would they have cut it, right? So you're saying in an operation that at least at the time the public didn't know about, right? That was serving the intelligence agencies, who Elon Musk also serves and also has contracts before. You're asking me, would Elon cut that? Would he take that action, right? That's different from whether he would approve.
There's different factions in these organizations, isn't there?
Like whether he would not take that action or not take that action, right? That's different from
his recommendation is public, though. I agree. If you had a different person leading the agency who is like maybe more pro like Reagan in this regards, like maybe they might not
I got to be honest, guys. This
be as based as Elon's being.
This
sure,
debate's
and if,
basically the biggest amount of copium I've ever seen.
That's fine, I guess.
Can't
but
even
like,
imagine.
Either because here's the thing: if Elon is following Trump's like directives, then that's great in your mind because hey, he's following the will of the elected official. If he's not, which is,
but at any rate, you know, it's a good time for everyone.
He's already demonstrated some good judgment.
Everything out.
Recommending cutting
it's a lot of copium. Right? We got about 10, 15 minutes left, and then I'm going to drop off.
Like getting rid of
and go somewhere else.
Have a good one. Getting rid of other competitors to contracts that he wants. Like he could cut those contracts. Oh, this isn't inefficient.
No, he's going to be denied. No, he's going to be denied if it's a conflict of interest. He's not going to be.
Why would it be? Why would it be again?
If it's another defense contractor that he's in competition with.
Again, once he's exercised his power over Congress. This is a part that you don't seem to accept, right? He's literally shown his power over Congress. You're assuming that this must be good oversight.
No, I don't think so.
Right, this legislative body that just literally
might
to his will.
I muted myself that time.
Bent to his will because he sent a tweet out. He said
not those members and not the president.
Oh, not those members. Yes,
and not the president.
It's literally the biggest amount of copium I've ever heard.
These brave members of Congress who don't respond to primary challenges.
I'm glad, Prime, you discovered not trusting the government. Big fan of that.
I haven't seen any threat that he's made against those specific congressmen.
No, it's not. No, Lactwood, what you're telling me, friend. What you're telling me is that we have a special breed of politician that's been put in charge of Elon Musk, a special breed, right? Who are above these concerns. So please name them. Who is a special breed, right?
Again, I don't know the specific names off the top of my head. I don't know the names.
Okay, then how do you know that they didn't respond to the previous?
No, because Elon Musk hasn't threatened, hey, if you don't let me do X, Y, Z, I'm going to primary you.
So you have to substantiate.
You did. But then on top of that, it's not just those congressmen, it's also the president in the United States who is not in danger of being primaried.
My claim is that all those congressmen and senators, right, are subject to the exact same pressures, right, of getting reelected and not wanting to be primary, not wanting millions upon millions of dollars to end up in the coffers of a possible opponent.
Yes, if they didn't do what Trump wanted them to do, that was the threat.
If they didn't want to do what Elon wanted them to do.
Yeah, like
which happened to line up with exactly what Trump was saying.
That came
after. Says they're not going to fund a congressman or a politician anymore, and then they all of a sudden start bending the will. The same thing with Elon. If he stops funding them in the future elections.
Like I love this.
Like they fall back.
Rewrite.
You would just replace Elon.
Wait! You guys like attribute all this business and like this shit to Elon. Look what he did with his own platform. It's supposed to be a free speech platform. Someone made fun of him for Asmongold made fun of him for the game. He removed his verification. He removed all the verification for the people who were doing the talking shit or like whatever for the H1B videos. So it's like this is the person that is like
he pulled the check marks from the Groypers. And look, I've criticized that decision. I think X is much freer now than it was before.
Yeah,
he obviously he comes into a position and improves things. He doesn't make things perfect. No, it's not a soft criticism. I criticize that. I criticize that publicly
Wait,
when
hold
that
on, Lactoid.
happened. I
You're
thought that was a
arguing-
very
you don't
bad
like the-
decision, and I thought that was hypocritical.
Hold on, Lactoid.
And
So you're
but
arguing
I'm not
against your
saying
own
he's
principles.
perfect, but nobody's
You're arguing
perfect.
against
No,
your own
but I'm saying
principles
this is the person that
This
you
is
want
not
to
my
let be in
principles. What are you
charge.
talking about,
This
Gibbs?
is
Yeah,
this
so
is the
you- oh,
person
so
you're okay
private- a
with being in
private
charge
business
of
owner
roads.
shouldn't
Wait,
be able
wait,
to,
Gibbs, one second.
Yeah, and as a
So,
private
This is the
person, I
person
can
you're okay with.
criticize them for it.
This is the person. Okay, yeah, the person that
you
you
don't like that
criticize
he's
for
running his
being
business
that
how he
petty with
wants.
his own platform, right? Is the person you want in charge of government efficiency when he has not only the finances to fund any race at this point that he wants, but you think that like he's not going to exert that same pettiness when it comes to like people who stand against him in any way, shape, or form?
So with the amount of oversight he has right
Be
now,
fair.
it doesn't. I understand the concern. With the amount of oversight he has right now, there doesn't appear to be an ability for him to exert pettiness, especially over the president of the United States. If that proves to be incorrect in some way, then I'll eat my words. But right now, what I see is somebody who has like been overall a net force for good on X, overall a net force for good in terms of space travel and cars. And then this fucking dude gets into like, the Doge, and one of his first suggestions is cutting this horrible program. I'm seeing nothing but good.
He really destroyed Twitter. But hold on, $10 super chat.
He
from
destroyed Twitter.
Alexander Wynn. They say,
Well, it's not
are
called
they?
Twitter anymore.
Twitter is literally destroyed.
Fair enough.
Are they? The super chat says, are they okay with this because it's Trump and Elon? What if it was Biden and his son, or Harris and Soros? Are they good with this precedence? Billionaires with their hands in every executive pie. And
I would say yes. There's the answer for them.
I believe you've answered this question.
Didn't he
The
pardon
answer
his
is,
son?
yes, they are fine with this. I asked them directly, but thank you for that super chat. But I'm going to expand on what your question was, right? And Lactoid or anyone else can answer this, right? Who's supportive. Putting Elon aside, right? I have big fucking problems with Elon. Lots of problems with Elon. But we're going to put him aside for a second. Let's replace him with a generic billionaire. Who has a multinational or international company that has contracts, right, in front of governments across the world. This individual, right, who has conflicts of interest, has all kinds of priorities, completely separate from the American people. Are you saying that the functions of our government are better? I think I know what Scott's answer is, but the functions of our government are better in the hands of billionaires like the ones that I've just described. You'd rather that individual with all those conflicts of interest, even with our enemies, right? So our political rivals, you'd rather have a billionaire like that have massive power within our government rather than lowly bureaucrats who lack that. Is that really the better option to all of you?
It depends. It depends who they are. It depends what their history is.
that
It
matters.
depends what they've done already. It depends on what their agenda is. There's all sorts of things.
President, why would it matter? And they
In
have
terms
oversight.
of
Why would it matter?
well, then it doesn't matter who they are. If they have oversight of the president, they could be either or.
You're saying that this person Elon Musk has oversight, right? And he has strong oversight. And so
Yes.
so compare that with, because you're saying like it matters what happens in the past. Well, what does it matter if it happens in the past?
Yeah, the reason why that matters, again, I'm looking for somebody with an eye for efficiency. I want somebody in this agency who can go in, look through a balance sheet and say, I identify XYZ problem. I'm going to bring XYZ problem to the attention of the president. Hey, Mr. President, here's XYZ problem. What are your thoughts on what we should do about it? I suggest we do XYZ. And the president looks at this and says, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a bureaucrat. It doesn't matter if it's my mom. Okay, it doesn't. If they're good at it, that's what I want them to do. That's what prime. You asked me a question.
Then I'm comparing. Okay, great. So you're saying that it just matters in your, even though there's lots of contradictions here. It just matters in your.
Honestly, guys, it's more fun watching Prime spurg out at this point.
Who has an eye for cutting, right, and efficiency and all that, right?
And appropriate security clearances and oversight.
So has all that good stuff, right? All the requirements that you want, right? This individual, right? Compare this individual who makes I don't know $200,000 a year from the government, with no other.
Savage, you still out there in the chat? You guys, you having fun? You hanging out?
Compare that to a person, this generic billionaire. Which one would you like? The person without conflict of interest or the person who does, and they both have the same qualifications to do this particular job.
As long as the billionaire is being denied access to anything with a conflict of interest, there wouldn't be a conflict of interest, which is what they're saying is happening.
They have loyalties to priorities to another nation, because of their business interests.
Yeah,
They
look,
would-
if they're handling anything regarding those foreign nations, then I'd
It's
prefer the
amazing
one with
that
a.
all of a sudden,
I'd prefer the one without
power of money.
the conflict. I'd prefer the one without any kind of conflict of interest if they have to look into conflict of interest. But what President Trump has said is that if there's a conflict of interest that's identified, Elon doesn't look into it. Now, let me ask you something. If you have somebody with the proven, I know you hate him, but he does have proven business acumen, and he absolutely. I sent you the chart on
Elon Musk does
SpaceX. Okay, the SpaceX, that's all nothing. He's actually not like an engineer who developed shit
no,
when he
he's
was
not an
8 years
engineer.
old.
No, he's not an engineer. No, he doesn't. He doesn't understand.
What are you
rockets.
talking
He doesn't-
about?
I know, because this is new to you. You've never heard this. You don't know anything about Elon Musk, right? This is what I'm saying. We actually have to have a long conversation. This isn't a soundbite worthy.
He was lead engineer at SpaceX. He developed computer programs when he was like 9 years old.
Himself the title lead engineer, but he's not an engineer. He doesn't know anything about. He's bad at software development. We've had people within his companies that talked about how he's bad at software development. He doesn't know anything about rockets.
I feel like PayPal did pretty good.
Well, PayPal
Love
developed by other
PayPal.
people.
Fantastic.
PayPal developed by other people, right? There's a whole PayPal mafia, right? Like Elon, and they tossed him out. Right? So
he sold it.
Elon Musk.
Yeah,
sold
he
it.
sold it for
You
like
don't
a
believe it.
bunch
I
of fucking
understand.
money.
You haven't
That's
heard
not
it.
getting thrown
I
out.
have to prove it to you, but I can't do that right now. We don't have the time.
Okay,
But
we
If I-
don't
if I
have
may,
the time.
if I
We
may,
don't have the
you guys
time,
are
so I'm
going-
not convinced.
You guys are going back and forth about Elon. Let's just completely fucking take Elon out of this, right? And I know Prime, you kind of tried to do that with like a different billionaire, right? That like funded.
Oh, never mind. Go ahead. Keep going. Sorry.
Right, like what if, different scenario, there's a different billionaire with, access to the president who is then in charge of this this committee, and then is able to presumably view things that aren't a conflict of interest or are a conflict of interest, etc. My big problem with this is it seems like you guys have this
He
weird
literally lives in his
inherent
mom's
trust of
basement.
government
I just
that
can't
has proven
can't
to not be
keep that.
worthy of your trust.
Can't keep saying
in
that
so
enough.
many
He
fucking
literally
ways.
lives
The
in his
topic is about
basement.
USAID.
He
And
is
what we are
just
talking about is a
typical
program
leftist.
that is ostensibly foreign aid to help people, to do nation building, to help, build wells and farming communities, etc. And what it is a United States
Silver Ogre, I
led
appreciate the effort.
mafia to create other countries and turn them into client states, right? The Blue Dot Network was a system developed between Australia, China, and USAID to
The
go
funny
into
thing, guys,
countries
is he
and
doesn't
give
even
them
understand
loans,
the
and
actual
then
history
say
of
that
Tesla.
if
He's
contingent
sitting here
upon these
spurging
loans,
about shit.
you must
that
use
is-
companies that have
if he
3
actually
blue
looked
dots
it
that have
up,
been-
would just
that have
scare the
been,
shit out of him.
verified by
Whatever.
us, which basically allows for Japan, Australia, and primarily America to be able to put in American corporations and give all of the money that is used for development to these corporations, which, by the way, are corporations that lobby and purchase politicians and have their kids sit on boards of things like foreign council relations and the national, billionaires, right? Corrupt billionaires and millionaires and all of these corrupt politicians work together to fuck over these countries. And then what they do is, and this is a great book about this, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. What they do is they wait for the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates. And the moment that they do that, many of these countries, they depend upon leveraging additional debt to pay off debt that they got before because they thought they were getting this great deal, but it turns out all the money went to American corporations and there's very little return on investment because the money doesn't stay in their country. Then what the IMF does is they come in and they offer them more loans and they get them, turn them into a debt thing. Then another program, which was created in 2021, which was the G7's Build Back Better world, right? Off of the model of the Blue Dot Blue Dot program, right? What they do is they offer grants instead of loans. You're enslaved in debt. So what we're going to do is we're going to offer you grants so that you can get
Smoking
out of these
Spaceman, you're
loans.
100% right.
And we're
That's
going to use the
exactly
World
what's going
Economic
on.
Forum and the G7 programs and the IMF, et cetera. So now you're no longer in this debt cycle. Of course, unfortunately, if you want these grants, you're going to have to change your government the way that we like you to change your government. You're going to have to engage in privatization the way that we want you to engage in privatization. You're going to have to enrich the American empire more. So throughout all of this, what we have is an incredibly corrupt system that is utilizing and maintaining wealth of the millionaires and billionaires, that is designed for the wealthy elite, NGOs, corrupt politicians to make defense contractors, NGOs, millionaires and billionaires, all the people that you don't like, more money and more power. And so we have a different institution, a different thing, which is Doge, coming in and saying, this is bad. And you're going, but the billionaire is corrupt. Don't we hate this corrupt billionaire? The whole fucking system that he's trying to destroy is a system of corrupt millionaires and
I can answer
billionaires.
your question very easily. It's because I don't look at this as good guys versus bad guys. I don't look at this.
Neither do I.
Oh, okay, great. Well, then we're already on the same page because I look at this as bad guys versus monsters, or a disaster that I can control rather than a disaster that I can't. I'd rather have individuals who are elected and somewhat accountable, right, through somewhat of a democratic process, broken as it is, with all the caveats that I already have because we've discussed this before, right? I'd rather have that than an unelected individual, a person with whose first and only goal is their profits, them being in charge of these functions. Simple as that.
Okay. Yeah, no, like I follow that. Here's my problem. When you were pressed much earlier in the conversation about Doge and why we shouldn't have Doge, your response was, and it seems like you're parroting this response to a certain degree, was that, well, we have the Inspector General's office. We have these institutions within the state that are designed to make sure that this money isn't wasted and that this money goes to the right places. But all of these systems were the very systems that failed to curtail this $50 billion of world-destroying, humanity-destroying systems. And now there's a new guy coming in that says, let's get rid of this shit, and you hate him off of the principle of him being a billionaire.
I know. This is why I didn't look at it as fraud, right? So in terms of lying to the American people, sure, yeah, great. Like, I agree with you that it's a lie. If you say that we're instituting some sort of program to accomplish this goal, right? You announce this to the public, right? Or don't announce it to the public, right? But the public thinks you're generally doing these types of things, right? But instead you're not. You're funneling it. You're using it for covert operations or whatever, right? Yes, they lied to the American people, but right, for the function of that apparatus, right, of this organization, is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to do that money laundering operation within that Eastern European country, so that we can get weapons, right? To combat Russia.
Hold on, this is all new.
Let me answer the question. This is what you want to. You were confused about this. I'm letting you know. Here's my opinion, right? So yes, like this agency, it's supposed to do that. It's like
18 minutes,
of our
18 minutes, and I'm out.
It's running as it's supposed to run. So I don't look at it as necessarily fraud, because like that's the goal, right? That's the goal, is to do these things. But I can say that like it's maybe morally corrupt, or
I'm really okay with
morally,
but
I'm okay with saying that, hey, you got this federal
as intended to, right? Then the Inspector General looks at it and says, okay, well, you're actually doing your actual goals, not your stated goals, but your actual goals, you're accomplishing that, right? Well, then there's nothing to.
So I disagree. I think, and here's why I disagree, right? The CIA has a budget. The State Department has a budget. Okay. Now, when you're saying, well, the USAID is doing what it's supposed to do, I agree that it's doing what it's supposed to do as far as politicians that are lying and committing fraud to us say. Okay, but when you, as the American citizen, are being told that USAID is this giant program that roughly 1% of your taxes goes towards, and that your taxes are being spent on building wells, on helping universities, be able to study things in other countries, giving reading programs to Pakistani girls, they're feeding, impoverished people, and the organization is called USAID, and you're being told that it is foreign aid to help people that are in need, instead of that money going to the CIA. That's just not true, Prime. If USAID was destroyed and all of that money went to the CIA, a lot of people would be like, hey man, the CIA has a real big fucking budget that's real secret. Maybe we should cut CIA funding. But instead, we've created this new program that is designed to look like foreign aid to help people, but is being utilized fraudulently as an arm of the CIA. You would have an argument if the CIA had the same budget and USA didn't exist, and then they were like, look, this is secret shit. You don't get to know what we do with this money. But instead, they say, we're doing good things with this money, when secretly they're fucking destroying the world with this money.
I can see, again, there's a person, again, and I hope you already know this about me, but maybe I have to say it again. I hate U.S. imperialism. Right? I have huge critiques of U.S. imperialism, right? Critiques that I think are similar to you, Scott. Maybe actually, I'm not sure about Lactoid so much. But at the very least, similar to you, Scott, on this, right? And the polar opposite of whatever Gibbs wants to do. So I hear you, friend, on that. But like, if these agencies exist, right? Even though I may not want them to exist, or I may not want them to do the things that they do, right? If they do, I understand that to operate, right, to be as effective as possible, it's useful to have fronts, right? It's useful to create things, right? Like to create a like an organization, like whether a quote unquote private organization, or this charitable public organization, to accomplish missions, right? To launder money through them, right? To run drugs. I like we send a shipment of food, but like buried in there is like a shipment of AKs, right? As well. It's useful to do all that. So if we're going to have these things, which I don't think we should necessarily have these things, right? It's fine if the U.S. government does that to accomplish its missions, which I don't agree with in the first place.
Okay. Let's assume saying it's fine sounds like you're kind of okay with American imperialism.
I'm not okay.
But let's set that aside. My issue is, like, look, I understand you believe that maybe it's okay for some reason for In-Q-Tel to exist, right? Which is an investment firm that the CIA uses, where they gain and funnel money from billionaires and things like that to set up things like Metabiota, when they set up the level 4 biolabs in Ukraine, and when they engage in corruption in Ukraine for like American interests, whatever, right? In-Q-Tel exists. It's an investment firm that gains money and funding from billionaires, and then they make sure that they do what the billionaires want, like start wars in the right places, so then that those billionaires get their money back by engaging
never
in whatever,
failed.
right? My issue is that the
just
CIA
talk to a
has
coworker.
somewhere between like $30 and $40 billion budget, and USAID has somewhere between like 35 and 45 billion, right? And so what we have is we have a program that is working for the CIA that has a budget bigger than the CIA. And I just do not buy this argument that it is okay and that it is acceptable that we have a program that works towards the interests of the CIA. Who knows what percentage of their budget is towards CIA goals, and they certainly work with and communicate with the CIA to make sure that whatever they're doing aligns with the State Department and CIA goals. That is bigger than the CIA itself, and the American public is being told, hey, it's only like 0.8% of your budget is going towards the CIA, when maybe it's actually 2% of your fucking budget. I think that that's fucking fraud,
Sure,
especially when it's being used for evil purposes.
It's bad. It equals bad, right? Where I would start with this, I would start with again. Here's where I think we build a bridge. I start with the Pentagon. The Pentagon can't pass an audit, right? Where does our money go, right? This is a small ball, right? This is a tiny portion of the problem, right? Like
Yes, it's
I
a
could-
great start getting rid
Would
of
you
USAID. It's a
support
great fucking
Elon
start.
cutting the Pentagon?
Well, I support.
Let's say Elon
How about the
investigates
Department of
Pentagon and goes to
Education,
Trump
which
and says,
hasn't passed an
"Here's the
audit
problem."
in-
in
Elon's list.
I
8
don't
years?
support Elon having the power to cut the Pentagon. No.
No, hold on. He doesn't have the power, but he brings suggestions to Trump who then cuts the
Whatever.
Pentagon.
Oh my God! Please stop.
Well,
stop
I'm asking. No, this is very important.
Stop wasting my time. Stop
That's
wasting
him
my
having
time.
power.
What about-
I've already answered the question.
What about the
I'm
Department of
supportive
Education?
of it being cut, the Pentagon being cut. I've been talking about it for years, right? You've heard me talk about it. I'm not supportive of Elon or whoever the fuck pulls the trigger through the recommendations of Doge doing it. No.
I have a
All right.
question. So the Constitution
So
has.
who do you trust? How do we fix this? Because you
Before
said the
that-
Inspector
hold on,
General's
before-
office
before-
would be good, right?
hold
But
on.
they didn't stop it. So how are we stopping it?
Before I have to re-engineer the whole system. I have lots of ideas on this. I've talked about it before. But hold on, before we do that, I'm gonna get Ico.
Yeah,
Why
so
not Doge?
the Constitution gives
Why?
gives authority to the Senate, right, to advise and consent. And it sounds to me like this Doge thing is more powerful than any agency, than any secretary that would have to be confirmed. Because like if once you confirm a Secretary of State, they have authority over the State Department, right? Once you do confirm DNI, they have authority over the intelligence agencies, right? But they're in their silos. Now we have people who are over all of the silos in the same way that only the president should be, and they don't need advice and consent from the Senate. And the only step that's missing is the only difference is they talk to the president and then the president does the thing, right? But other than that, they're higher in power than any secretary, and yet they don't. Advice and consent is not necessary. So are we saying?
Well, they don't
that
make any
the founders-
decisions.
Right. So are we saying at this point there's just no theoretical basis for the concept of advice and consent anymore? Like, what's the point of it at this point, other than the fact that it's arbitrarily in the Constitution?
Because the department heads can make decisions on they can make decisions on their own. They don't have to go to Trump and say, Trump, I think you should make this specific decision, and then Trump makes the decision.
But they can. I mean, he still has the power to. They serve at the pleasure of the president.
Oh, yeah,
he can
ultimately,
turn
he
it
could fire
over.
them.
Yeah, he can overturn their
just like he
decision.
could fire Elon. But again, the difference
Just like he could
is
fire Elon, yeah.
they have control over their departments. Those departments get funding from Congress, etc. This is entirely different. Doge doesn't get, it's not allocated funding from Congress. It's not.
Well, there's also a corrupt incentive structure. Every single department head, his job or her job, right, is dependent upon showcasing that they're doing a good job with the money that they have. Okay, like they're not incentivized personally as an individual to go to the president and say, hey, look, my department's doing a bad job. Please cut my department. Please give me less power. Please give me less, please trim the fat here, right? Like, sure, there is an incentive to cut and trim fat within their own department and then maybe go to the president and say, look, we cut and trimmed this. Aren't I doing a good job? The Doge is love it or hate it, right? I understand that some people have, like many people here, have an issue with Doge, but nevertheless, the incentive structure of Doge is to find fraud, waste, and abuse. Every instance of fraud, waste, and abuse that they find is a pat on the back, and that is confirmation.
Scott,
that they're
I
doing their
agree
job.
with you, but let me take a different. Go ahead.
Trust the objective of Doge, but not the objective of any of the other three agencies. Right?
Again, you put a straw man in your question. Right? I never said that I trusted.
Man. I didn't put a straw man. It was just a question. I was just trying to understand your point.
Well,
there's no
right.
man
Well, I
of
have
straw,
to.
There's no fire. You don't have to put the
Sociologic.
Okay,
I know. Listen,
it's
sociologic.
fine,
You
there's a
asked.
promise,
You asked to.
No people.
Sociologic. Stop trying to. You asked what is known as a leading question, which is when did you stop beating your wife? Right. No matter what I answer to, when did you stop beating your wife? Right. Like exactly. If I answer with any form of time, then it is assumed that I was beating my wife at some point.
I've never beat my wife.
You asked me, why do I trust?
The
Right, but that's not actually an answer to the question. That's because the question that was asked is a leading question. Stop it. Okay. I'm saying that it's a leading question because the question assumes that I trust Elon Musk or that I trust Doge. What I gave you was not that I trust him. What I gave you was an assessment of what I gave you was an assessment of the incentive structure. What I'm saying is that Doge and Elon Musk in this example, as the person in Doge, is incentivized, right, to find fraud, waste, and abuse. And what I'm saying is that other department heads are less so incentivized to find fraud, waste,
Scott,
and
as an
abuse.
example of
They're
this,
yes,
Okay, but
yes,
just
they're
getting-
incentivized fraud, waste, and abuse, but they're also incentivized to maintain their budget so that they have a budget.
But I don't
you
you
see.
trust Doge because of their incentives.
But I don't think it's true that
I never
secretaries
said
can't do
that.
the
What
same
the
I
thing.
know you
fuck,
never
dude?
said that. I'm telling you, I literally said that's why I said it sounds like, if you're listening, I said it sounds like to me. I didn't say that
It
to me.
sounds like isn't a fucking an argument.
I never said
You're
it was
just
an
you're
argument. It was
putting a
fucking
position that I don't
question.
have.
It was framed in like a question. Like it sounds like this. Though now you get to explain yourself, and that's what the issue is. You know, it's called a conversation.
Sounds
Okay,
like
just-
you guys just really hate Elon Musk. But
Yeah,
go
you're
ahead.
just
say-
sounds
I
like
don't
as a
give a
way
fuck
for you to
about
sneak
Elon
in.
Musk.
I have a
Like-
question,
like-
Scott.
and
Scott,
subvert.
Scott,
I can't
this
go
is
cape
very
on
important.
throw a cape on
This is
foil.
kind
That's
of
weird.
along the lines here. So let's just take a random department like the Department of Education, which hasn't been able to pass a budget or an audit, pardon me, in like 8 years. They have something like a $8 billion unaccounted for every year, and yet nothing happens. Right. So how in the world how can we accept that as a society, and how can we then how would we then be able to trust the agencies that already exist that have failed year after year after year after year to curtail it? That's why Doge has to exist, because otherwise all you have is the same thing for the next 20 fucking years of $8 billion going unaccounted for every year of taxpayer money.
So why wouldn't Doge end up being the same thing? What if money gets
Because
funded into
Doge has an
and they're doing all of
expiration
this?
date.
Which is how long?
Well, until Trump's out of office, really. Like he's formed it as a task force. This is a task force. This isn't a new agency. There's not a staffing. It's not on the congressional charts. There's no TOE for it.
Does
Elon-
Doge make
Elon-
money? Does Doge
Elon
make
is
money?
actually not getting paid to do this. He's actually not.
Doge
It
is
is
doing
on
this
the
for
organizational
free?
charts.
No, so Elon,
Like,
I don't know
they
about
just-
Doge, but Elon
They
is special
repurposed
government
the
employee. or whatever.
US, I think Digital Services, I think is what it stands for, right? Like that's what Doge is. Like they have, like it was an agency, and then they repurposed it. They put a new name on it. So it should be within organizational charts. But just
Elon's not
empowered.
getting paid, to be clear. He's a special government employee or some
So
shit
the
like that.
Doge
He's only
has a
110
set-
days.
Doge has a set expiration
year,
date of
sorry.
July 4th, 2026.
Then I guess it reverts back to USDS, but yeah. Like there,
Yeah,
now
it
it's-
has an
Is there money
expiration
in the
date. So
program?
that's why
I'm
it's
actually just
different.
trying to
That's why it's
understand
different. It has an
how this works,
expiration
so-
date. It has a specific task to
expiration
complete.
date.
Iko, did you
I'm
want
sure
to
there's
say
money, sociologist. Somebody's got to pay their fucking their like average
something?
Joe
Iko, did
that's
you want to
working
say
there.
something?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that it's not true that you have to like create this new department in order to get cuts from people who've been confirmed by the Senate. For instance, Betsy DeVos proposed a $7.1 billion cut to the Department of Education under Trump. Like you don't have to like circumvent the Constitution in order to get cuts to agencies. You have to be pretty darn motivated in order to get it done. Like I understand that.
Well, I
Did you
count.
see
Did that
Elon's tweet an hour ago about the Department of Education?
I'm sorry.
As of
No.
an hour ago, Elon tweeted about the Department of Education that Doge was in the process of reviewing it.
Yeah, I know. But I'm talking about in his first term. In his first term, he had that.
In his
proposal
first
from
term, I
his
think
own,
Trump
like,
was really
members.
naive, but that's irrelevant to what's going on now. What's going on now is now, and that's what we need to deal with.
Well, hold on. Maybe not quite, but I count. Did Betsy DeVos get that cut passed?
What do you mean passed? Like she
Like,
does
so
the
was it-
proposal and then it has to be. No, I don't think Trump
Yeah,
approved
it's
it.
not, it
Yeah,
hasn't gone
didn't
through
get-
yet.
It
It would have
didn't go
had to
through.
have been. It would have had to like Trump
So-
would have had to have to approve
Right,
that. And
so
then
I
if
guess
Trump were to do it, well, this happened before the decision last year. But if Trump were to do it to attempt that now, he would still need to show that he's spending all of the agency money that was authorized by Congress in ways that were intended by Congress. And my assumption is that DeVos wasn't able to do those cuts because she couldn't show that it was congressional intent.
Right.
And
So
they
okay.
would have even more of that problem now, right? Because
Well, would they?
because of the Supreme Court decision. Yeah.
Well, so here's my thing, right? So if you're arguing that, like,
Because the
okay,
Supreme Court now explicitly says that you have to prove congressional intent in order to get whatever cuts you want.
all right, okay, and so what do you think Doge's goal would be when it's looking at the Department of Education?
To return all power to the state.
I believe that ICO is a
Okay,
school
and why
teacher
would they be
or
more
some kind of
effective than, say,
educator,
Betsy
and
DeVos
that's
is,
why he's always
recommending
very
this
alert
Trump
to
and it
the
didn't pass?
Department of Education.
What's the big
stuff.
difference here? All right, if you don't, or do you see one? Not see one. 'Cause
I
see
don't
one.
see. I don't see one because I think now it's going to be even more difficult than it was before because we have this overturning of the.
Hold on, I'm confused by what a lot of people think here because something doesn't seem to add up. There seems to be an assumption, right, that the goal of Doge when it cuts fraud, waste, and abuse is to then silo this money or freeze this money or return this money to the taxpayer. I don't think anyone in the Trump administration has, and correct me if I'm wrong, has made this claim that this money is then just going to be like written out as checks to the American taxpayer, frozen in some regard, right? So if you assume, let's say, for example, that the Department of Education, right? So let's say Doge investigates the Department of Education and finds 20% of its funds are spent on useless programs with no return on investment that don't help out anybody, that go towards like something that they consider to be dumb, right? The presumption here ought be, unless he wins some Supreme Court case or something, is that 20% of money is then freed up to go into things like school lunch programs or some other program that is probably, but that is in some way, shape, or form seen to be not as efficient. So there seems to be this presumption that like the goal of Doge is to like take a hammer to the state and like turn it libertarian. I wish that's what we were doing, but it seems to me that what the goal is to go into this, find that there's a bunch of taxpayer funds that are being spent on dumb shit, and then move those over into the same program, into the same agency towards the traditional spending that builds roads, builds new schools, these welfare assistance programs, whatever the fuck those things may be in that instance. It seems like we're arguing that Trump is a mega. Okay, but there's also, what constitutional authority do they have? And if it's assumed that the constitutional authority is that they must spend this money in some regard, right? Well then, there's that. And secondly, the other stated goal of Doge, which we haven't even talked about, but I guess fair enough because the topic should be about USAID and everybody agrees with me that it's a giant evil program. We just don't agree on whether or not Elon Musk is more evil than the most evil government program in existence that has killed and genocided millions of people worldwide and destroyed progress and innovation throughout the world. We can't agree that like that's good enough to allow Elon Musk to say that we shouldn't do it because Elon Musk is so mega bad. But like the other thing that Doge is supposed to do is find regulations that exist and get rid of those regulations because they are obtrusive or because there's overlap in them, right? Like when Congress writes laws, more often than not, they have this very, very vague concept of like how something will be regulated because they trust the bureaucrats that are like experts at the EPA or whatever more than they do the congressmen in terms of how it's handled. So there's a ton of regulatory power that is given to the executive branch, even though it ought to be Congress, constitutionally speaking, because they write very vague things and say, hey, just get this done. And it's Doge's job to come in and go, well, we have overlap and we have things that are stopping business. And that's not even a money thing. So like, I guess I understand that people hate Elon Musk, but like, what are we fucking talking about when it comes to USAID and when it comes to the what Doge is supposed to do?
I think
I've got to go, guys. It's 11 o'clock. I'm going to turn into a pumpkin. I'm going to go argue with some other people. I really appreciate it. Prime got into it with you there, and you took it like a champ. It's been an interesting night, to say the least. Anyway, really appreciate you having me on. I'm gonna run away now.
Glad to have you. Hey, did you
Peace,
change your
Grid.
camera? I wanted to say this before, but like you seem more clear. I don't know, like, or maybe just you're closer.
I
to
changed the
mic.
whole studio around, and actually I didn't
Notice the
change the
Boba Fett
camera, but
Mandalorian
it's a
upgrade
manual
behind it.
focus camera, so I
Okay.
probably just focused it better.
But you look handsome. Like I haven't seen your face like
Honestly,
this.
those
Well, I
Those
also took my
are-
my reading glasses off.
What a glow
Yeah,
up.
you look good.
Keep them off.
Thank you.
Contacts.
All
Contacts
right.
always Grid.
Thank you. I
Have a
appreciate
good
that,
one,
guys. Maybe a little less of a sausage fest next time, Prime. You know,
if you know women who want to be involved, we'd love to have them. Right now, all dudes, all the
We
time.
keep running them off.
all
We
dudes,
do.
all the time. All right, you gentlemen have fun, and I'll see you later.
Have a good one,
Take
friend.
care.
Peace.
Sorry, who was talking before?
It was Icon.
I think it was me, but now I forgot where we were.
Yeah, you were backing
Well,
me up.
Scott went off
saying,
about what are we doing here? You know, like what are we even doing? That was the last thing that was said.
Oh,
It's
right.
what are we even
Like, what
doing
is
here?
the perceived role of Doge? Like, what are their stated goals, right? And their stated goals, I guess, because of the limitations.
Baby, that was terrible. That was terrible. throw a Furby at Prime, see if it sticks. Yeah, that would be great. Oh, that'd be so good. I'm gonna go over to Glenn's panel. You guys have a great night. I appreciate all of you sticking through this junk fest. I mean, this was just stupid. This Prime was just berging out left and right. He really hates Elon Musk, and his history is ridiculously fucked up. Tesla's founded by two dudes. Neither one of them could find their ass out of in a wet paper bag, and they just basically Al wouldn't have existed, but Al Gore gave them the money through a government program. The cars were supposed to be built in the U.S. Al Gore lied to the American taxpayer. They were built in England. They were shipped over. They kind of did some shit here with them, and then they tried to sell. You want to raid what? Raid who? Who do you want me to raid? It was really just kind of a Elon bash fest. Yeah, even the ladies have sausage on Prime. But well, yeah, we can raid Glenn. Give me a second. Let me put my glasses back on so I can see this shit. But it was really an interesting night, was it not? I mean, it really those guys are, and just the amount of ridiculousness, it was crazy, man. Like, I couldn't even believe how stupid everybody was. And that's saying something, because I've seen some stupid. I'm gonna tell you, I've seen things, but it really was. Those guys were out to lunch big time. They didn't want to have anything to do with making this stuff right, or trying to be upfront. Not, they were disingenuous as shit. For whatever damn reason. And, it just is what it is. They, it's, you can't help some people. They just can't be helped at all. So, but it was a good time for me. I did get some good, I got some reasonable hits in there, and, those guys deserved everything they got. So yeah, we're gonna go raid Glenn. Normally I'd do a big outro, but hey, get the fuck out.